they didn't do it specifically to do this, but the result is that everyone came to this game for a Game Boy Color Zelda type experience, and it was actually a Trojan horse with Castlevania inside. Hello and welcome to Tales from the Backlog, a gaming deep dive podcast. I am your host, as always, Dave Jackson, he, him.
And I'm Matt, aka Stormageddon, they, them.
And today we'll be covering Mina the Hollower on the podcast. But before we get into that, a few quick things. If this is your first time here on the show, I want to thank you for stopping by first and foremost. And here's the spoiler policy. If you have not played or have not finished Mina the Hollower, we're not going to spoil the story for a while. And we're also not going to go too deep into like specific boss encounters and things like that until the spoiler section. So those things will remain fun to discover for the first time. There's a timestamp down in the show notes for when spoilers begin. And until that point, consider yourself safe. And if you like the show, please consider supporting it however you can. There are lots of free ways to do that. You can do that by sharing with friends in Discord servers, just sharing the episode with people you think would enjoy it. You can also leave ratings and reviews on the podcast apps and likes and comments on YouTube. All of those are very helpful. So, as you heard at the top of the show, Matt, aka Stormageddon, is back with me on the show today. They're a many time guest. You get an extra many now, Matt.
Wow.
A many time guest. One of the hosts of Fun and Games and Reignite podcast and a subterranean inventor. Matt, welcome back.
I can't help but tinker with gadgets, and that's why, it's gained me notoriety. I mean, I deign to think that some of your listeners don't know who I am unless this is their first episode at this point, since we have done not only a ton of episodes on your show, but also many different genres of game. Like I don't think we've even repeated a genre, unless you count like us doing the big Yakuza episode and then me coming back for the man who,
right.
Well, no, but I got to say the full title, right?
You have to say the full one, yeah.
Right,
Come
which
on,
is like it. What is it? Like a Dragon, Gaiden, the man who erased his name. Okay,
there
I
we
got
go.
there.
Yes,
yeah,
we've got that one. We did Bayonetta 3, Slay the Princess, Wanderstop. We got a big collection. Usually, I think we skew indie. Other than that Yakuza episode, well, I guess Bayonetta 2. So I'm talking out of my ass. None of that's real.
No.
We also have an episode about the Beginner's Guide, which will be coming up later this year for everybody. Yep. One of my most frequent guests, and I'd love to have you back on for a game that I know both of us, long before this game released, we were like, we're doing Mina the Hollower together, right?
Yeah, I think I called it when the game... So not when the game was announced, because I don't think I knew you yet. But basically, once the game had like trailers and stuff, so like a couple of years ago, I basically went, by the way, I know you love Shovel Knight. Can we do Mina the Hollower? And you said yes. And then we were ready to do it in October, and then we didn't.
We didn't.
But
and
now
we're ready to do it again now. Yeah.
Yes.
So that game today, it is Mina the Hollower. It is an action RPG developed and published by Yacht Club Games for contemporary consoles and PC in 2026. And this is the point where I usually divide up the credits into the main names. And while I think I can make a good guess at who the main names are in here, Yacht Club does not separate their credits by roles on the project. So you can go check the credits online if you want to see everyone involved in the project. There's too many to just read the list of names out, although they are a fairly small studio. But we will maybe talk about some specific names as we go along. You know, for example, the concept for the game came from Alec Faulkner. We've heard that in interviews. We know the soundtrack composed by Jake Kaufman and a few tracks by Yuzo Koshiro, who is making the rounds, doing a lot of like soundtrack collaborations with indie studios, which is super cool. A real OG in video game soundtracks. So love to see that.
Yeah. Like, as the video game nerd, Yacht Club is always rewarding me. I mean, a lot of the indie studios, I feel like, because there have been a lot of like Yoko Shimomura also has worked on a bunch of indie RPGs in collaboration recently. So like, I think a lot of the vets are like starting to dive in on some of the indie stuff, and it's cool to see that collaboration.
Absolutely, yeah. So in case someone is here and they don't know what Mina the Hollower is, they're here because they love me and they love Matt. We have our quick pitches as usual. My quick pitch for Mina the Hollower is a big cocktail of Castlevania, Zelda, Bloodborne, and a shit ton of hot sauce. Matt, what would you say?
Mine is a retro action RPG with Game Boy Color aesthetics and a modern punch.
Yes, very good. So we have some very clear inspirations in both of those pitches. We'll talk about those as we go through. I played this game on PC and Steam Deck, probably about half and half on the actual PC and on Steam Deck. It took me about 20 hours to complete, and I do want to say I did receive a review code ahead of release from Yacht Club, so thank you, Yacht Club. Very nice of you.
Yeah, I played this on the PC, Steam Deck, and Switch 2, and I will explain that in a minute. So I also received a review code from Yacht Club for Steam, and thank you to them for that. And then I played about an hour of it and then didn't touch it for 2 weeks until after the game came out. And because I am a mark and all of my Shovel Knight games are on my Switch, we'll get into more of that in a minute, I was like, I want to play this on Switch too, and I was going to give them $20 anyway, so I bought it on Switch too, and I played the entire game from the beginning all the way through on the Switch too, and it took me 20 hours and 11 minutes.
There we go. Well, we've mentioned Shovel Knight a couple times, so let's dig into, you see that? Let's dig into our personal histories. I didn't do it on purpose, but I have to call it out. And I just, throw off the whole flow of everything. That's what we're doing. So let's talk about our histories with Shovel Knight, with Yacht Club Games. And then we've mentioned some inspiration. So maybe just like briefly, Castlevania, Zelda, Bloodborne, Souls, stuff like that. So Matt, what is your history with this beyond just the fact that you wanted to play it because it's Yacht Club?
Yeah. So folks who have listened to Fun and Games know that Jen and I, basically since the dawn of the podcast, mentioned Shovel Knight on almost every episode, basically any opportunity. The history of that is when Jen and I were first starting to record and hung out more in person when we weren't too busy to do that. Then that's not throwing shade on Jen, it's mostly on me. I was at their apartment, and they have, if you've never seen in either Dave's or my Discord, Jen has posted their game collection, which they have procured with their spouse, Sarah. And it's incredible, like just hundreds and hundreds of games. And so anyway, friends are encouraged when we go to their place, like, oh, if there's a game you want to play, you want to borrow it, just let us know. And we were talking about this game, Shovel Knight, that I had heard of but never played. And Jed's like, oh, just borrow the 3DS version. I have that here, and you can take it. And so I borrowed it, played the first like 4 stages, immediately turned it off, and brought it back a week later and said, I have to buy this. I have to play it on my own console. And so I bought it on Switch. I bought the Treasure Trove, which then wasn't complete. I think only Plague of Shadows was on it. It's now, of course, a complete conglomerate of games. And then immediately like played through all of Shovel of Hope basically in a couple of sittings. Like I became obsessed with it. I would go on to play all of the other games. And so Shovel Knight is basically one of the gems in the Infinity Gauntlet of Fun and Games, right up there with Shantae, of like games that are important to Jen or me that one of us gave to the other to play for the first time. And so, like Shovel Knight has since become one of my favorite games of all time. I love what Yacht Club does. I've gone on to play, of course, all of the expansions for the Treasure Trove, which is Plague of Shadows, Spectre of Torment, and King of Cards. I surprised I could still remember all of them.
That was well done.
Yeah. And then I would go on to also play Shovel Knight Dig, which was by another studio and published by Yacht Club, which actually, fun fact, was one of the first review codes that Jen and I got. We did a full-length review episode that was in a slot of a side quest episode because we were just excited to have a review code and wanted to do something with it. And then I would go on to play the Shovel Knight. What is it? Puzzle Quest, maybe?
Pocket
Dungeon. Pocket Dungeon.
Yeah.
Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon I would play as well. Didn't love that one as much because I'm just dumb and bad at puzzle games. there was nothing wrong with that game. But basically, I played the entire oeuvre of Yacht Club Games, and basically from the moment Mina was announced, I was like, I'm playing that day and date, especially because it looked like this mix of Zelda and Castlevania. To speak to that a little bit, even though I've already gone on way too long, Dave brings me on and then can't expect me to not be long-winded. Our podcast lengths are notorious at this point. But I have a long history with Castlevania and Zelda. Also, I've played most Castlevania games and basically every Zelda game except for Wind Waker at this point, and the Oracle games, which is a big hole in my catalog. But basically, top-down Zelda is my favorite kind of Zelda game. I like Breath of the Wild. I like the 3D games, but like, besides Ocarina of Time, my preference is mostly for the 2D games. And then Bloodborne, I mean, I've played the intro. You and I streamed it once, but I couldn't get to the multiplayer section, so we just talked while I died a lot. But I did have some fun with Bloodborne. I played it a bit after Elden Ring, but never finished it. I do want to go back to it. But I'm quite familiar with the Souls genre at this point, much to my own dismay. So, that's kind of my broad history with all of that.
There we go. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of on the same page, at least with Shovel Knight. Like, I bought it on the Switch. When I first bought a Switch, I didn't really know. I've said this a bunch of times, but I wasn't really like plugged into video games that much. And so literally just Googled, top 10 Switch games, and Shovel Knight was on a bunch of those lists, and it looked cool. So I bought it, and I loved it. I have played all the expansions. Shovel Knight was episode 58 of this podcast, so that was a while ago now, but it was on the show. And then I found myself after that, basically, like, it's weird to consider yourself a super fan of a studio that only had one game, right?
Yeah.
But I loved Shovel Knight so much that it was like, sight unseen, I'm buying their next game. I don't give a shit. I'm buying it. They could make a fucking RTS like dating sim, and I would buy it. Two of my genres that I don't play. It was like, I'll buy Mina. And then they announced it, and it was like, oh, they're making a game that looks like Link's Awakening, which is like one of the 3 formative games for me as a kid. Okay, yeah, say no more. None needed to be said, but say no more. Seriously, stop. I'm buying it. And so I was in after that. And I have a long history with the 2D Zelda games. I've played all of them, except I maybe missed one on the DS at some point. I've played several of the Castlevania games from a bunch of different eras of Castlevania. I haven't played all of them, but I've played all from each of the eras. Or I played one from at least all of the eras. You know what I mean? And so getting into Mina the Hollower was like this big confluence of like excitement for this game, excitement for what this studio has, but also excitement for all of these different inspirations that they're very clearly wearing on their sleeve with this. And then the game came out, and it took a lot of people by surprise. And I'm going to say why I think it did, but I want to just first say I fucking loved Mina the Hollower. I devoured this game. It has a little bit of like pushback to it. Like it's got some thorns every now and then. And I've grown to really appreciate games that have that. I think that's part of the reason why Mina is going to stick with me longer than a lot of other games that I liked. But what I think happened was people are like, oh, Mina the Hollower looks like Link's Awakening. And then you start playing it and you're like, this isn't Link's Awakening. It's not structured like it. It doesn't play like it. It's a lot harder than Link's Awakening. And then you've got like some very obvious Castlevania stuff in there. You've got some very obvious like Souls type mechanics in there. But what I think is going on is this game is not, the percentage of those influences is not enough in one of the directions. It's not Zelda enough for all the Zelda fans to be like, fuck yeah, Mina the Hollower, it's exactly what I wanted. It's not Castlevania enough, or it doesn't look like Castlevania maybe. Like that's the biggest thing to me. The perspective is different, but it's not like someone who's like, Castlevania 1's my favorite game of all time. Mina the Hollower is the exact same thing. It's not exactly the same thing. Same with the Souls influence. Like, and it has its own mechanics, like the burrowing mechanic we'll talk about. It gives this game like a personality all to its own, a rhythm all to its own. And I think it takes a lot of time to really, really get in lockstep with what this game actually is. And once I did, it happened for me about 5-6 hours into it. I enjoyed it up until that point, but I was frustrated at the same time. Like I had a couple crash outs in Discord servers over, a section or a boss fight or so. I don't remember anymore. I know there were a couple crash outs, but once I got in lockstep with like, this is what this game is, this is how I should be playing it. I should not be trying to approach it like a Zelda game because it's not a Zelda game, stuff like that. Then I was like, this is excellent. And Yacht Club Games, like, give them the time, the resources to make a game with the vision that they have for it, and they just make really, really quality games. So I love Mina the Hollower.
Yeah, I think we're basically in the same place. I will say that while technically Shovel Knight is one game, I would argue that each of the campaigns, except maybe Plague of Shadows, is its own game. There's enough content, plus the fighting game, the rivalry game, and like that literally, like, Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is like 5 games in one. And so to me, they've been making like many games. And then like, again, Nitrome did Dig, which I didn't remember before, but I remember now. But like they collaborated with Yacht Club and the vibes are there. And if you like roguelikes or roguelites, I still don't know the difference and don't care at this point, you should play Shovel Knight Dig because the vibes are right. It's actually a prequel story-wise to Shovel Knight and is absolutely worth your time if you've not played it. But yeah, I started this game and within the first hour, I felt bad. Like I was upset because I thought I didn't like it. Like I was just trying to approach it like a Zelda game. Dave knows that I begrudgingly like Souls games at this point, and if I can find ways around the difficulty to like give myself a little bit of a break, like I've done in Dark Souls 2 and 3, and I've done in Hollow Knight Silksong, like things that give me just a tiny bit of damage resistance, so I'm not dying in 1 hit, I'm dying in 3. I will like search those options out, and Mina does have that, things like that, and we'll get to it. But in the first hour, I was just dying a lot. It was hard. Like I just couldn't figure out where to go and all of this stuff. And I was like, I might not like this game, but I persevered. And like you said, Dave, around the like 2 or 3 or 4 hour mark, as I started to understand it better, as I started to understand how it worked, how the dodge worked, how the enemies worked, got better upgrades, and basically focused on my defense so I could take more hits. Like then the game started to open up and I really loved it. And once I started using the modifiers, which we'll talk about more, but that freedom to like customize the game to take away some of the Souls elements, add some damage resistance, whatever it is, that made me immediately, because mechanically and gameplay wise and aesthetically and visually and musically, it's a 10 out of 10. There are some things for me personally that bring it back from that, but like you can't argue that the vibes are right for a Yacht Club game, especially. And I think that's when I started to really love it, because I absolutely loved this game. I loved my time with it. And once I got over that hurdle, I could not put it down. I was playing it every night for 2 or 3 hour chunks at a time, like just trying to get through and find new stuff and discover. And most of the friction melted away, or I started using a guide, which I have no problem doing. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that you may need to adjust your expectations going into this, but ultimately there's a lot to love in this game.
Yeah. And I think part of it is like, I played the demo for this. And so I kind of knew that they were doing a little bit of different stuff, but I didn't know the extent to which this was different. When I bought this, I still expected it to be structured like a Zelda game. I expected it to have like a hook shot and shit. Like I just thought that was what the game was going to be. And it's not. I think this game has a reverse difficulty curve, or at least a reverse feeling difficulty curve, where the game never stops being hard, but it feels the hardest right at the beginning, in my opinion. And so that, coupled with the fact that the game is not what a lot of people, myself included, expected it to be, caused a lot of people to butt up against it and be like, someone's going to give here. And the game is like, all right, we've got all these ways that we'll give if you want to change some stuff. There are some stuff that like can't be changed. And I do think that like there is a commitment to providing a specific type of experience that you got to figure out what this game actually is, and then it will lock itself in. And we'll get into that in a little bit. For now, we will take our first music break of the episode. We'll come back, we'll set up the story, and then we'll get into how you play. In Mina the Hollower, you play as Mina, who is a hollower, if you can believe it. Mina is a mouse. She also happens to be the genius inventor of something called the spark generators, which is these big towers. They are energy sources that brought prosperity to the game's setting of Tenebrous Isle. At the beginning of the game, Mina is out of town. She's gone, and she receives a letter to come back and investigate why those spark generators are failing. And on her way back, her ship is attacked by a sea monster and wrecks on the shore. Little nice, I don't know if this is intentional, but a little nod to the opening of Link's Awakening with the shipwreck at the beginning of the game. Mina grabs a weapon and sets out to figure out what's going on with the generators. So you get to pick a weapon right at the beginning of the game. There is a set of like twin knives. There's a like whip flail type weapon, and then there's a big ass hammer. Matt, what did you pick at the beginning?
So at the beginning, I chose the Night Star, which is basically like a whip with a mace on the end. It is very Castlevania-like and is in most of the artwork the weapon that Mina is depicted with, and probably the first weapon I'm guessing they designed before they started creating other weapons for the game as well.
Okay, cool. That's the one I picked too. It seemed nice to have some distance away from enemies, which is the main reason why I picked it. And I will just say, like, all of these weapons, I have tried all of them. They play very differently. The hammer it's almost like playing a different game in a kind of way. Like, you charge up hits and you can like roll around on the ground in like very specific directions while you're charging the hammer hits. The hammer, like a fully charged hit, does a ton of damage, like big chunks out of like boss health bars and stuff. But you have to charge it up and line it up perfectly and stuff like that. So even within the three, and there are more weapons, there's a lot of different like play styles. I liked the whip because I could stay distance away from enemies while still hitting them. And if I have to hit them 3 times as many times, that's fine because I'm not getting hit as often.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone has followed me on other podcasts or even this podcast, you will be fully aware that I suck at video games. And so anything that will allow me to keep some distance and like be more defensive, I will choose. Which is funny because typically in a lot of games I do play warrior classes and like two-handers and slower weapons, but they usually like will give me some way to keep distance or block or whatever. Whereas in this game, the hammer didn't really work that way. I too have played all of the opening weapons. I've played this demo for the game, I don't know, at least in the double digits 10 times. Like basically since they started showing it, if I was at a convention and Yacht Club was there, I would play it. And so I got to try all of the weapons. And I did like try and like restart a couple of times to just get a feel. Well, not try, but you can like sample the weapons before you leave the ship. And so I did that with all of them. But the having the range and being able to be a little more defensive is always going to be my go-to in most games.
Just kind of following along those lines then, like we talked at the beginning of the show a little bit about some of the influences that the game wears on its sleeve, and then some that like, you know, you wouldn't guess Castlevania just from looking at a screenshot, but playing it, if you've played the NES or Super Nintendo Castlevania games, you're like, oh, this follows a lot of those same principles. I mean, you get sub-weapons just like Castlevania, limited ammo, they go away when you die, it's exactly like Castlevania. But the thing that I noticed is the old Castlevania games and I'm playing Castlevania 1 like right now. I just started it the other day because I heard the developers from Yacht Club talk about Castlevania as a huge influence for this game. And you can see it in stuff like you need to maintain distance away from enemies. You have a long whip, stay a little farther back, don't get hit. The fact that Mina has knockback when you get hit, like that's a Castlevania thing. The way that you have to juggle platforming challenges while enemies are flying around on the screen, very Castlevania type of deal there. And I saw it was in one of, I can't remember. Yacht Club's been doing this really good series on YouTube of like game dev podcasts, basically just talking about the design and their process, and also some interviews. I don't remember where I saw this, but they basically said they didn't do it specifically to do this, but the result is that everyone came to this game for a Game Boy Color Zelda type experience, and it was actually a Trojan horse with Castlevania inside. It's more Castlevania than anything else.
Yeah, aesthetically, it's closer to Zelda, but basically everything else. I mean, I will say that the crash outs I had in the early game were absolutely from the platforming and knockback, because if there's one thing that will continually piss me off about a Castlevania game is the insane knockback and the inability to control whoever you're playing as. I mean, you're playing the first game now, like Simon is goddamn useless once he gets hit. Like if there's a pit behind you, done. Like you are finished, full stop. And there are plenty of times in Mina, especially early on, when you're running from an enemy or like doing platforming challenges and you get clobbered and fall into a pit. Thankfully, it's not a game over. You lose some health, but also like in the early game, you can take like 4 or 5 hits. And if you fall in the pit 3 times, you're basically dead. And so that's where like a lot of my early raging was, like just not being able to like survive in like gauntlet style platforming challenges where it's just one thing after another.
Yeah, and one of the Bloodborne influences in this game is the healing system, where like you get a kind of temporary health if you hit enemies. It will build, and then if you use your healing item, you will then regain the health. But if you're not able to hit any enemies, like for example, if you've fallen into the same pit 6 times in a row, then you're not really able to heal, which I know that that's something that bothers a lot of people. I get it. Like it does feel like a negative reinforcement death spiral. Didn't happen to me all that often. Like if I was in that bad a shape, I'd probably just died and try it again anyway. But that is something that does happen from time to time. But you're right. Like that idea of like being 3, maybe not 3, most things are not that complicated, but being in the middle of a complicated platforming type sequence and then like this enemy swoops down and hits you in the middle of a jump, and then you fall down the pit and you get reset sometimes pretty far back in these rooms and have to restart. That feels like a Castlevania thing, and it turns platforming, combat is this way too, but really platforming is like this really intentional thing. You can't just go jumping willy-nilly. It's not, it like the jumping feels like Rock's Feather in Link's Awakening, but the result of you playing is not the same, because in Zelda, if you fall down a hole, you just start like right next to the hole, and it's not like this in Mina. So it turns platforming, while it's like relatively simple, it's very intentional, and you have hazards to deal with and stuff like that, which I don't know, kind of like spiced it up for me. I accepted the challenge of the platforming, even though it's not like a really deep platforming system like a Celeste or, something like that.
Yeah, ultimately I enjoyed it. I think at its worst for me is when I couldn't split the difference between fighting through a room and platforming through a room, because towards the back half of the game, especially, while I won't spoil specifics, the hardest areas or when the room itself is a challenge and the enemies in it. And so like you're platforming while trying to kill things, and often that's how you get got. And that's like the best rooms were when you could find a flow in that, and the worst rooms were when like I just felt overwhelmed. And there's a specific room we'll talk about in the last dungeon that I absolutely hated, but we'll save that for the spoiler wall.
I do think the game is more generous than people give it credit for, which that room you're talking about is a little more generous than people give it credit for. But I know what you mean there. Let's talk a little bit about that Zelda influence, which you see mostly in the visuals. I think like I read that the graphics, or like the artists, kept themselves to the limitation of Game Boy Color. How many colors are going on, how many like colors can each pixel hold, like stuff like that. Basically, I read the only thing that they gave themselves modern, leeway with is the resolution and, widescreen. It's not a square like the Game Boy. But one look at this for anyone who grew up playing Link's Awakening or the Oracle games will be like, man, it looks exactly like it. You know, like every character is like, their character is purple. That's their color. You know, stuff like that. It really, really reminds me of those games.
Yeah, this is a game where, and this is what Yacht Club does. It's our favorite thing to talk about over on Fun and Games, is like games that look like they could have run on a console, but absolutely could not have. It's Shovel Knight also, right? It looks like an NES game, and they did try and keep themselves as close as possible to the NES stuff, but it absolutely could never run on a Nintendo. And this is basically the same thing, whereas like it looks like a Game Boy Color game, and they restricted yourself to a lot of it, but with the resolution and some other things, it couldn't actually run on a Game Boy Color, but very much looks like it and evokes that vibe. And like the sprite work is incredible. Like I'll talk about some favorite bosses later, but like every boss design in this game, full stop from beginning to end, is some of the most intricate and unique looking stuff I've ever seen. I think that's where a lot of the Bloodborne influence is as well in some of those.
A little bit. Yeah. And in the town too, in Ossex, it's a very gothic ass town there.
Yeah, but like all the character sprites are detailed. Even Mina is like, while Mina looks like she could be on a Game Boy Color, her variety of expressions and movements and just sprite variety, there's no way they could have added all of that. And like, I love it. Like I've taken so many screenshots of this game of just like Mina sitting on the edge of the tower, like either pondering or taking a nap or like genuinely looking pretty adorable in a variety of ways. It's just, it always blows me away, the level of detail. Even you were talking about the enemies who are all one color, but they also have tons of articulation points, and like the way they attack and the way they move is like incredibly detailed.
Much more detailed than something like Link's Awakening, where a lot of enemies, you know, in those old Zelda games, a lot of enemies will just run at you or jump at you, you know, stuff. It wasn't... They didn't have unique animations for different attacks in like multiple attacks and stuff like that. And this game does, like a lot of the enemies are enemies you need to pay attention to and enemies you need to learn. They might not be the most complicated once you figure out what they can do, but you do need to figure them out. And then there are plenty of enemies out there that like, they are tough and they're common, and you do need to figure out, how do I get past them? Like, whether you're going to run past them or fight them, how do I get through here without getting hit too much? It's weird when I talk about the way this game feels. The way Mina, like if you're just walking around or jumping, it feels like Zelda, or even attacking, like the basic like attack with the whip type thing. It feels like a Zelda type, just the kinetics of it feels Zelda-y to me. The enemies with their attacks and some of the bosses, although I'd argue the bosses still feel more like Zelda than anything else to me, just harder. Some of that stuff feels Soulsy. You've got a corpse run mechanic in here that is much more friendly than any Souls game has ever been with corpse runs. Like you get up to like 4 or 5 chances late in the game to go get your stuff back. So you've got this big confluence of influences in the way the game feels. And so you start the game out and you're like, oh, feels like Zelda, feels like Souls. I got to play it like Zelda or Souls, you know, specifically when you're talking about Zelda, block with your shield, or in Souls, dodge roll with your iframes or parry or something like that. And Mina the Hollower, to its great credit, in my opinion, feels like it was specifically designed to not have any of those things and to feel like its own thing. And so what you get is this move called burrowing, where, you know, Mina's a mouse. You jump underground, you burrow around, and then you pop up a little bit. Use this in platforming because you'll get an extra long jump if you jump out of a burrow. But In combat, this serves as your defensive move to not get hit. And so this is one of those adjustment points for me, because when I started this out, I was like, oh, this is my dodge roll. So when the enemy raises its weapon up, then I'll jump underground and burrow. And the burrow move is too slow to do that. And so you have to readjust to the rhythm of burrowing and how the game is trying to push you into playing it.
Yeah, initially I tried that as well. Like, would jumping be a good dodge, or would like burrowing be a good dodge? And ultimately, if you start to burrow or jump when the enemy raises their weapon, you'll never get out of the way in time. And so what becomes more of is like you have to learn the patterns and then attack and preemptively just dodge or decide to move, let them attack. Because also you can't burrow for an unlimited amount of time. You have like a second or two and then you pop up automatically. And so you really have to time that out. And early game, I was like trying to do the preemptive, like, oh, they take a swing, I dodge. And it just didn't work. I would die a lot. And it wasn't until learning how the burrow moves, how long you can be underground, because it doesn't feel very precise in the early game, but by the end of this game, you know exactly how long you can be under. And that's when you can do tricks both platforming wise and attacking wise, where like I'm no longer waiting for them to attack to dodge. I'm just taking some pot shots and moving and like basically preemptively like bouncing around to take them out.
Yeah. What it turned into for me is really similar to what you said. It stopped being reactive and it started being proactive.
Yes.
To basically, I'm just underground all the time. And then I will pop up, hit the enemy, and then when they turn, I'm already underground again. Like that is what a successful boss fight, especially in Mina the Hollower, looks like for me, is I'm underground more than I'm not. And that's just not the way that you expect to play a game, to play anything like that. It's a very unique mechanic, and to adjust to that took me some time. This is that thing that like 5-6 hours into the game, there was a boss fight that was just really fucking hard if I was trying to reactively dodge to what it was doing. And it wasn't until I was like, well, if they can't hit me if I'm underground, so I'm just going to be underground as much as possible. And suddenly it was like, it all worked. And I was like, oh shit, that's what this game is. I just need to be burrowing around like a maniac as much as possible. And sometimes you'll fight other hollowers from time to time. That's how they fight, is they're underground a lot of time. And so that's part of the adjustment is like, so like I said, we kind of like, I'm a little bit sorry for being like, here's how it's like Castlevania. Here's how it's like Zelda as to like introduce the conversation, but to pull out all the ways that it's like those things. And then at the end of it be like, so now that you know the ways that it's like it, but in the most important way possible, it's none of those things. It's Mina the Hollower. And so that's, I think, one of those reasons why people seem to be like butting heads with the game more than more than a lot of difficult games. Like I really compare this to Silksong in that way, where like Silksong's really hard and a lot of people really found issue with it. The difference is Mina the Hollower is like, here, tweak the game however you want to make it a little more agreeable. But I do know people who tweaked the game and still didn't find it to be what they wanted. And I wonder how much of that is like just having a hard time, like really, really, really getting into lockstep with like the burrowing mechanic, how you should be playing it, and like treating it as its own game more so than a Zelda-like or a Castlevania-like. Like the influences are very obvious, but at the end of the day, Mina the Hollower is not a Zelda-like. It's not a Castlevania-like. It's its own thing. This burrowing mechanic is really that. And it's like arguably the most important mechanic other than what weapon you have. This is the thing that gives it that very distinct personality to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a Yacht Club's signature more than anything else. You think about Shovel Knight, and while, yes, the dive with the shovel is very much, and the pogo is very much like, this is DuckTales. that's kind of where it starts and stops. You know, like some of the sub weapons are like Castlevania, and then some of them are like Metroid, and like the bosses are sort of like Mega Man because they're themed, but you don't get their power. Like everything else is not quite like anything else. That one thing is. And then also, like, to that end, like the thing I think that makes Mina special is that once you grasp that, it does become easier, but also like I have a lot of gripes with Souls games, even as someone who likes them now. And I think where this is the closest to a Souls game is that the average enemies will wreck your shit if you're not careful. You cannot button mash in this game. I died more to the heavies between areas in the dungeons than I did to the actual bosses. I beat, I would say, half the bosses on the first try. The other half were difficult enough that I would have to try multiple times. But like the first dungeon, I beat the first boss with ease. And I think it's because by that point, I had been getting my ass kicked by these stupid pig enemies that jump and spikes come out of the ground. And I could not figure out how to deal with them until I realized if I'm burrowing when they jump, I don't take damage. The spikes don't hit you. And I had to do that. And before they even got off the ground, go underground. And like things like that made it much easier once I let go of like, this is like X, and just played it as. And I think it's what makes a studio like Yacht Club and studios like it do that thing where they're giving you a vibe, but then once you play it, you find out it's actually not like that at all. It's something wholly its own with little bits and pieces of what influenced it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I wonder how many people have not played Shovel Knight in a while, because I totally agree with you that, like, I've played DuckTales. I played plenty of Mega Man at this. I played it, not plenty. I've played enough Mega Man for my proclivities. To know that, like, you can play those and be like, yeah, I see where Shovel Knight took this stuff, but these are so different.
Yeah.
Even DuckTales, very different. And Shovel Knight was really hard too. Like, that was not an easy game.
No.
And I think part of it is, even for people who loved Shovel Knight is 2D. And so like the possibility space within a 2D game is, there's just less that could possibly be happening in a 2D game than in 3D. And the one thing I did have issue with in Mina, like pretty consistently, was like, I had a really hard time internalizing that, like, you can't go behind enemies if you're like touching their sprite. I feel like I should be able to go behind this boss because I know what shape they are, right? And it's a 3D, but it's not really a 3D game. No. It just looks like it is. That gave me some pause, but there is like more stuff that could be happening on any given screen or in any given fight than in a Shovel Knight or a side-on 2D view like a Shovel Knight game. This is a more complicated game than Shovel Knight. And I honestly, I think it's been a while since some people played Shovel Knight and they forgot how difficult that game can be. I play it pretty recently, and it's tough. It's a tough game.
I mean, I think it's tough, but in a different way, because in Shovel Knight, basically the only thing you lose is money when you die, especially if you don't break the checkpoints. And so, like, there's no real loss there because you can farm and just get your money back, go back to old stages, where because this takes the Souls vibe of, so in this game you get sparks, you start with 1 when you first start the game. Basically when you die, if you die on a stage hazard, your spark will just be floating there. If you die to an enemy, they absorb the spark, and basically you have to get back to that and either get the spark physically or kill that enemy to reabsorb it so you don't lose your bones, because that's the currency in this game, I don't think we've said, which is bones.
Right. The bones are the skeleton's money. Yeah.
Right. And it just makes me want to yell bone like in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Bone! Anyway, but yeah, and if you die again, you lose them all. But also this game has ways you can turn them into bone dust, which turn into crystals that you can then permanently just store. And so you won't lose those. You can only do that once per level. And then there's certain items that are immediately bone dust that you can store. So even that is different from a Souls game, that they give you a way to store stuff and find your way around it. And so I do like that. I think that while it does take a lot of Souls influence from healing and the currency, it's still not exactly the same. They made it their own, and there are ways to circumvent it to, make things a little easier for yourself. You can increase how many sparks you have over the course of the game, things like that, can kind of game the system. Like if you want to just keep doing, because every time you level up, we haven't talked about this, you can level up your your attack, your defense, your sub weapon, or it's a level up item to convert all your bones into bone dust. You can game the system and just keep doing the level up to bone dust and keep saving them, but it goes up just like any of the other level ups. So you can't do it at that same amount. It gets bigger and bigger, and you have a limited amount of times you can do it. And so I did like that freedom too. Also, you could level up and just keep leveling up your defense over and over again. It gets exponentially more expensive, but nothing stopped you. Like I had 4 or 5 defense before I had more than 3 attack. And my sub-weapon suffered for a while because I was just like, not important to me.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I said this game is more generous with its like corpse run mechanic than any Souls game. You get multiple chances. You have ways to convert all your stuff into a permanent type of currency. It's like if you get to a really tough section, if it's not too inconvenient, you can just like, die once, go back to a shop, spend all your shit, and then go try it again. And also, like, as with the Souls games, losing all of your stuff permanently is really not that big a deal. Like, it happens to you a couple times, and I've just really have, like, a zen about it now. It's happened to me so many times, and it doesn't matter. Yeah. You'll get it back soon. I mean, if it costs you 5,000 to increase a stat, and you're carrying 50,000 and you lose it, that's kind of your fault. You should have spent that shit. Like, what are you doing carrying all that? It's like me walking around with like $3,000 cash in my wallet. Like, why would I do that? Doesn't make any sense. I can't afford to lose that much money. So yeah, go spend that shit. And then the other like part of that is starting to introduce ways, like you said, to chip away at that difficulty. Like I said, I think you agreed with me that this game feels the hardest at the beginning.
Yes.
It never stops being hard. The final areas and final bosses and stuff are a really good challenge. There's some like really hellacious platforming pretty late in the game. Never stops feeling hard. But by that end point in the game, honestly, after about 4 or 5 hours, I felt like I was gaining a lot of ways to gain little advantages here and there to deal with that difficulty level that just you don't have at the beginning. You're still learning how to play. And so one of those is like the level up system. Like you said, nothing in this game will stop you from grinding. If you want to grind up levels, you can by all means spend that time, grind it up. Some of the like maybe starting in the mid game, like some of the areas have enemies that give you a lot of bones when you kill them. So grinding, it's not going to be fast, but you can do it. And I know some people, like friend of the show, Aaron Angle, will spend an evening just grinding, like 4 or 5 hours in a row, just grinding until you're super powerful. This game will let you do that if you want to do it. But the other things about it are like you have the trinkets, which I think we've mentioned. They're like, think of them as rings, kind of like you find these things that give you these special effects. Like some of my favorites were like, I got one that would give me 1 free revive if I died. It would bring me back at half health, which is a big deal. Never came off. Used it the whole game after I found it. There's one that like will make it so that you can heal even if you don't have that Bloodborne style temporary health. You can always heal. There's one that's like you can't get interrupted out of the healing animation, like because that can happen. That feels bad. The healing animation's pretty long, so you gotta really pick a good time to do it. This one like shortens there's one that shortens the animation, and there's one that makes it so you can't get interrupted. And there's like, I want to say there's like 60 some there's a lot of trinkets in the game. And so once you start to get a little ways into the game, you've collected some trinkets and you can start to buff yourself up. That's how I kind of started with the trinkets, was like I got one that raises my defense, just very simple, raise defense, raise attack, free revive. And then late in the game, I beat the game with probably like 30, 35 of the trinkets. Late in the game, I would come across specific challenges, maybe a specific boss fight or a specific platforming challenge, and be like, I'm going to redo all my trinkets and give myself kind of a different character to play as for this specific challenge. And so that's why the challenge is still there, but it doesn't feel as hard because I've got tools to play with.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of that also, like, yes, the trinkets are great. I use the one, so there's an optional boss you can fight early on that gives you a trinket, and the trinket is a piece of poop. And what that trinket does
Yes.
is flies. You can accumulate up to 4 flies flying around you, and they're basically like a shield in like a Mega Man game where like it just rotates around you, and as you get near enemies, it does damage. And I use that for basically the entire game. There were ones that give you bonuses to your attack and defense, which I used for a lot of the game. Like, they're all really useful, but also you don't only get them from chests and bosses. You can also buy some of them, flat out. Also, there are a lot more weapons than the first 3 in this game, which surprised me. I thought those were going to be the only 3, but there are more, and you can buy those weapons. Also, there's a shop, and we'll talk more about that later, but there's a shop in the main town, Osix, where you could just buy one of the other weapons in the game, or you'll find them on the map. If you find them on the map after you've bought them, it'll just be an upgrade instead, vice versa. You can buy the upgrades if you found the item out in the world. But they give you access to that pretty early. There's a shop in Osix where you can't walk past it before the giant owner of the shop pulls you in, which was funny every time. Literally capitalism's reach on you.
Yes.
But always had some good stuff in the shop. You could buy straight up upgrades for your health, for your trinket slots, for your spark slots, like all of that you have access to basically from the beginning of the game. So while like there is a lot of difficulty in it, in the style of a Souls game, it gives you more access early to stuff to help tweak that, which is why after the first few hours, the difficulty curve goes down. It's still always a challenge, but it doesn't feel as like steep as the early game. Honestly, that's the closest this game felt to Silksong for me. Silksong is practically impossible in the beginning. The bosses are really hard. You die in like 2 hits. But as you get more health, more trinkets, more crests, the game stays challenging, but you have more survivability, which allows you to learn and do better more easily. And I think this has the same kind of ethos as you get stuff. And like the Souls games have that too, but it's a little more obtuse in the Souls games. Whereas here, there are clear explanations of what everything does, you know, how much they cost, it's reasonable. You can find them in a lot of places. There are tons of different shops and shopkeeps throughout the game too that you can get stuff from. And so like it, and also I don't think you go more than an hour. I think you don't go more than an hour before finding a new trinket every time. Like, I can't think of a long period of time I went without finding something new, either a new trinket, a new upgrade, you know, the sub items that you get access to more of the sub weapons. You get more access to more of them as you go. Some are like cordoned off to certain parts of the map in the game. Like all of that, I think makes this game an easier game to learn and to get through just based on what the game provides, not even speaking to the other things beyond it.
Yeah. And so you're gaining these extra trinkets, you're getting health upgrades, you're increasing your level, you're not leveling up, you're boning up.
You're boning up.
You bone up your attack, you bone up your defense, all of those things. And so like your character gets stronger, you get more tools, but also like I felt myself getting better at just playing the game.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in Silksong also. So they have a pretty hands-off approach to like teaching you how to play. Like what we talked about with the burrowing, like we had to figure that out. But once we did, then it all kind of snapped into place. The other part of it that I want to mention is you mentioned the frequency that you find trinkets. Trinkets and bone stones are like permanent bone, currency that you can't lose. Those are your 2 most common rewards for exploring in Mina the Hollower. And they're everywhere. Like, especially the treasure chests with bone stone in them, they're everywhere. This game is incredibly dense with stuff. I don't know that this is true, but if someone were to say, we checked it out, we cleared all the map, we got everything, and there is not a single square of this map that doesn't have something of incident on it, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds exactly right. Like, there's not a lot of like what I called liminal rooms where it's just like it's a hallway and you just walk through it. There's always something to fight. There's always some secret, like a false wall, or maybe they just show you the treasure chest and it's like, all right, how do I get up there? Like that kind of thing everywhere in this game. And so like if you are encouraged by exploring like I am, then you're just constantly finding more bone stone, finding more trinkets, going back to town to trade all that shit in for more whatever upgrades you want. You want to buy a new weapon, you want to upgrade your health, you want to buy more trinkets, you want to use it to bone up again. Like it's just, I felt like I was constantly being rewarded by finding the thing, and then that thing directly makes me stronger. And so it's always worth it to do that. It's always fun to do that, I found. And it just, that's what kind of, we talked about that kind of negative feedback loop sometimes. This is that great positive feeling of like, I do this, I get a great reward, it makes me stronger. Now I'm able to go do that. I get another reward for doing that, makes me stronger. This is that quality that made it so that I would play this game for 2-3 hours at a time, which I don't normally do. I'm playing a lot of games often for the podcast. Spend a lot of my free time playing games, if you can believe it. But I don't often just sit and play the same game for 3 hours straight. I'll often play for 1 hour and then switch to something else. And Mina was like, nope, we got you in a chokehold. We're playing this.
Yeah, I think it's the other thing that makes it the most like Castlevania is Castlevania does two things when you're exploring. One, you'll enter a room and there will be something like above you on the floor in the room above you that you can't get to, but you've seen it and you know eventually.
Zelda does that too. Like you go into a cave and there'll be a chest like across a pit you can't jump over, and you're like, how the fuck do I get over there? And then you find it eventually.
And this game does that a lot, but it also, I would say at least half the rooms have like a main path and then an offshoot to an isolated room where you get something, a trinket, bone stone, bones, whatever it is. Yeah. And every time you took one of those paths, you got something worthwhile. Like the thing that drives me crazy about exploration games especially is when there's like the classic example is there's a waterfall and you either can't go in it or you can go in it into a cave behind the waterfall and there's nothing in it, right?
Or it's like some bullshit reward. Like I did this thing in Ocarina of Time and I got 5 rupees out of the chest that I got from it. Like that feels bad. I've been maxed at rupees for 5 hours.
Right. It's one of this game understands the waterfall principle, as I'll call it here.
Yeah,
is like if they put a waterfall, you should be able to get behind it and get something worthwhile. And there's never a time where I went into a room and did a challenge and went, this wasn't worth it. There were plenty of rooms I went into, looked at the challenge and went, F that, I'm out. Like plenty of those rooms. But if I completed whatever asinine task this game expected of me, I always felt good about it because at worst, and it's not bad, you got 100 bone stone that adds up that can't go anywhere.
I also generally felt like the harder the challenge, the better the reward.
Yes.
Like there's like this one in Osix, there's this one challenge riding the bike sub-weapon that's really tough. And then at the end, you get a lot of bone stone for doing it. It's like the developers were like, okay, we know that was one of our harder challenges. Here is a reward that fits with the level of challenge with that. It was really good. One of the other things I want to mention this about kind of this idea of ways that you can kind of deal with the difficulty, ameliorate it, however you feel like describing it, is the game is open, like the structure is open. There are some places that are kind of locked off in certain ways, but they're not locked off in the way that, like, this is another way it's not a Zelda game. Like, it's not like you need the hook shot to get across this to go to the next area. I think you can access all the areas from the beginning. you just like might not know how at a certain point. But there's like, for example, outside of Osix, there's this big gap. It's like 3 spaces long. It's way too long to jump over. And so I saw that when I started the game, and I was like, oh, I'll get the Pegasus boots and Rock's Feather, and I'll jump over it like in Link's Awakening. And it's not like that. You just have to figure out any one of the... Yacht Club made a video about this specific gap, and they were like, here's the 25 ways that we've designed that you can creatively get over this gap. We're not going to tell you explicitly or like make it a hook shot or whatever, but there are so many ways that you can get over this. And there's a suggested order that you do the different zones of the game in, that the town newspaper will kind of push you in a certain direction. After you beat a boss, it will update and it will have a new thing that says like, chaos on the beach. And you're like, all right, cool. Maybe I'll go check out the beach next. And I did follow that order. I found it to be pretty helpful, but it's like, sometimes it's like I go to do the last area and I'm like, there was really nothing keeping me out of here. Just maybe knowledge or maybe access to a couple of sub weapons that like I needed to find, or I needed to find and then try, or access to a couple of trinkets that I needed to combine in a creative way. But it's open-ended from the beginning. So like, that's nice. But the other benefit of that is like, if I went to the northwest corner, for example, and I was like, this is really hard, because it is pretty hard. If I was like, this sucks, then I could just go somewhere else. And really, that's another lesson, I think, like a Silk Song's another game like that, where it's like, hey, if you're beating your head up against the Savage Beastfly, consider going somewhere else and coming back later. Like, I think this is something that if you have the type of personality where when you get met with a challenge, you're like, no, I'm going to beat this. I'm going to do it. I'm stubborn as fuck. My name's Dave Jackson. I'm going to beat this. I'm not going somewhere else. But the game is like, all right, man, sure. But you could go any number of other places and not, be frustrated and mad and crash out in Discord. Just go hit the bricks, and this game is very, very generous as to like never really funneling you into anything except when you're at the end and you don't have anything else left.
Yeah, the only thing I really used a guide for is what the next area I should go to is. And like what point, and have it point me in the right direction. I didn't like use a guide to get to the next area, but I wanted to know once I was in Osix and like by the second dungeon, you can basically go anywhere. I went, all right, well, I don't want to wander for 20 minutes figuring out where to go. I just want to be pointed in the right direction. So once I had the right direction, and even then, because of how the platforming challenges are, the gap you mentioned earlier, you still have to get creative on how you get to certain places. Like you can actually cut through Osix in certain ways to get to certain areas more easily. And so like that's mostly what I used it for. Everything else I kind of tried to figure out on my own. And there was never a challenge I hit where I went, I can't do this. Basically every challenge I found in this game, it was just a matter of time and learning. Most, especially bosses, like we'll talk more details about the bosses, but like there are some secret bosses that I found. Like my favorite secret boss, again, I won't spoil here, but I found him by complete accident and I was delighted. And he clobbered me, but then I was like, no, I did that. I was like, screw this. I'm going to learn this fight and I'm going to beat him. And I did. And it took a while, but I wanted to, and it was fun to learn it. But you're right. There is that freedom. There is a point in this game where they will make you grind for bones unless you have not been spending them. There is a hard point where you have to save up a certain amount of bones for something. And I basically at that point went, all right, let me put on Tales from the Backlog. And I just did a loop of a part of the map. And I just looped the map until I got all the bones I needed. And like Dave was saying, there are tons of enemies, especially the harder asshole enemies, that give more bones. So I would just like focus on them and reset it. And we didn't mention this, but the Underlabs is your like safe area. It's where you convert bone dust into actual bones you can use, where you can change weapons and trinkets. And it serves as your checkpoint and also the reset point, your bonfire essentially, to bring the enemies back. And so I would just like loop between 3 Underlabs and kill all the enemies till I got enough bones. Or if I was close to a level up or if I was close to getting an item I wanted, I would do that too. I never shied away from that because I feel like this game is more generous with bones than any Souls game is with Souls. There are some that like give you items you can turn in and stuff, and I think it's case by case. I guess the closest comparison is Elden Ring because they're both kind of open world.
Yeah.
But this still felt like it was still more bones per enemy kill, and you could kill them faster, I feel like, too.
Yeah. I think the thing is that you can kill them faster for sure. But it is that same thing that some people ran up in Elden Ring where Margit kicks the shit out of them at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, this game's too hard. Like, what the hell, FromSoftware? And it's FromSoftware saying like, nah, man, turn around, go somewhere else, come back later.
Yeah,
like,
there are like 8 caves you could have gone to with mini bosses that you can beat.
Yeah, this game, if you follow the order that the newspapers say, I think it's a pretty smooth thing. Like smooth as in like a level of challenge that always feels acceptable or like fair for the level that I'm at as a player. The the upgrades that I've gotten from Mina, all of that stuff feels in line, but you can go out of order. I know plenty of people who've done stuff out of order. Like it feels like there's probably some stuff that's harder than others. Like I wouldn't want to do dungeon number 5 that I did as my first one, but I suppose you could. But you always have that freedom of like, I don't want to deal with this this thing that's happening over here. I'm just going to go explore somewhere else and see what I find. You'll probably be rewarded for exploring and poking around too. Like the map is so dense with connections and secret caves and stuff like that. There's always something to find. It's really like I don't know that this is what Yacht Club spent their extra development time on. I kind of feel like it's probably not. But I got the feeling playing this of like, oh man, they really just like took the time they needed to pack this with stuff to do, other things to explore, like stuff like that. So I come out of this like, talking about the way it feels to play the game, like kind of understanding where people are coming from when they like butt up against what the game is. Yeah. But at the same time, I really feel like this is a classic case of like, I was drawn in by something that the game turned out to not be, and I need to adjust to what the game is doing. And when I did that, it really was like singing, and it's one of my favorite things I played in a while. And it's exactly the same as Shovel Knight in that like it turned into something that is like referencing and calling back to things that I know and love while still feeling like its own game at the end of the day.
Yeah, and also quickly, like I know we talked about Shovel Knight a lot, and if you haven't played it, go play it. But like, the also Shovel Knight, every time there was a side room or an alternate path, you were rewarded every single time, and this game does, and this game does it too. And I think that's what like. There are a lot of games that I've loved from moment one, and there are tons of games that I hated from moment one and never came around. I'd say I could only count on both hands the amount of games that like I warmed up to. It's usually like I either only sort of like something or love something or hate something. Like I don't, my enjoyment of it doesn't always evolve. Usually I get the vibe of a game and then I either like it, whereas I would put this in rarefied air with like Hades. Hades was a game that I heard great things about. I played the first hour of it and went, this game sucks and I hate it. And then I turned on God mode, died a few more times, got some resilience, started making new ground, seeing more of the story and went, oh, I love this game, actually. It might be one of my favorite games. And this has the same kind of arc where, like, you have to hit the wall, but if you listen to what the game is trying to tell you, and you're patient and you're open-minded, it very much will guide you on a path to learn how to love it if you want to play it that way. To that end, you don't have to also, but, like, it is there to... I just think it's interesting when I hit a game that I have a pit in my stomach of, like, oh, no, do I not love this new game from one of my favorite studios? And it turns out I did. Right. I just had to understand how to meet it where it lived.
Yeah. I think that the thing with those games is like a lot of the games that I think you start out, you love it from the beginning, you love it all the way through. Like a lot of those games aren't pushing back at you when you first start playing it. Some of them are. I mean, like I loved every FromSoftware game from minute 1 to the end, and they're constantly pushing back. But like, recently I've had a bunch of these, and it turned Silksong and now Mina the Hollower into like more memorable experiences because there was that adjustment of this isn't the thing that I thought it was. I need to figure out what this is. And yeah, I'm going to crash out a few times in that process. Nobody's perfect, but I do get that appreciation for sure. I do want to mention a couple of quick things, and then we got to talk about music. We can't not talk about the music, but there's one thing in this game that I think is terrible, and it's the tower spark generator ascensions at the end of each major dungeon. After you fight the boss, Mina will like run up, the camera angle shifts, you run up this circular tower. You're being chased by these arcs of electricity. There's enemies. If you get hit by the electricity or if you die, you get sent back to the bottom. And you're collecting bones as you go. So it has the feel of like an old school like bonus stage in like a Sonic or a Mario or something like that. But it's chaotic, and I don't think it's good to have you sent back to the bottom when you get hit by the electricity. It changed these from yay bonus, there's enemies around and it's like kind of frantic or whatever, to like, I don't know what the fuck this wants from me. This sucks. I hate it. I don't care about collecting bones. I just want to get to the top and have this be over. I don't think that's the intended way to play these. I think you're supposed to be like racing while collecting stuff like that. I thought these were bad.
I thought they were bad until I used a modifier to change them, basically.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Fair enough.
Like
Yeah.
I also immediately hated it when I figured out what it was. I was like, this isn't fun. And then like the fact that it resets you every time. Like I love the mechanics of it. Like you have to find these nodes that set out shockwaves, killing all the enemies near you. And every time you find one, it adds to your bonus haul at the end of it. You can get bones the whole way up. There's still ways to dig. Like visually, it's really cool. But yeah, it's completely muddy and chaotic. And it's really hard to follow. And I, without making the changes that I made, they would have driven me to quit the game, I think. So that's why I did.
Yeah. I don't know that this would have made me quit. There's not that many of them.
That's
but
true.
They are rough. I did not like them one bit.
Same.
Another just quick note. I want to mention we got into talking about gameplay really quickly, and I didn't get a chance to like give a thought about the story in the game. Yacht Club have proven to me now over the Shovel Knight base game, the Shovel Knight expansions, and Mina the Hollower that they tell simple stories, but they tell them very well.
Yes.
Like I honestly think that the way Mina the Hollower's story goes is actually really good. Like I thought the ending of this game was excellent.
Me too.
Like from a narrative perspective, excellent. And that's just, I shouldn't have been surprised because I felt the same way about Shovel Knight.
Yeah.
But I think that Yacht Club like are very, they back up a little bit as far as storytelling goes. They don't stop the game to tell story very often. They don't like force you to sit through long conversations, except for one very notable exception in this game that's also really fucking good.
Yes.
When we think, I'm not sure that I'm going to think of it this way, but I was going to say when we think of like indie studios that tell great stories, I don't think Yacht Club comes up in that conversation very often. And I don't think I will be like bringing them up alongside Sunset Visitor or something like that. But with that being said, whenever Yacht Club was like, we're going to do story, we're going to like sit you down and do story stuff, I thought it was really good. Like genuinely really impressed by when they decided to, be like, it's story time. It was awesome.
Yeah. Like Shovel Knight before it and all of its expansions, they have aha moments that you don't see coming. They're good with surprise. They're good at painting characters and like, characters immediately from the moment you meet them, like Lionel, who's your mentor and one of the aristocrats on the island. Like you get a vibe of the character from the minute you meet him. There are other Thorn, one of your rivals in the game, same thing, right? And then they also take you on a ride with those characters and introduce new things about them as you go. And Shovel Knight did that as well. Like Shovel Knight still to this day at the end of that game has one of my favorite aha moments in a video game. And it's not one that I saw coming. I mean, as Dave and I have discussed, we are pretty easy to beat over the head with a surprise since we never see the surprises in the Yakuza games coming. And that's, I think, kind of generally for a lot of games. But this game, I think, does telegraph it a little more, but takes you there in a really interesting way. But all of their games have been that way. And they're also good at moments of heart and like joy. You know, I think about in the Plague Knight expansion, every time you dance with Mona in that game, which Plague Knight has a crush on. The music is incredible, of course, but like it gives you this rush of joy and like, you know, you feel the emotion in a game that doesn't really have a ton of dialogue, right? Yeah. And I think this game does that too. The moments of impact. The whole end of this game, and we'll talk about in the spoiler wall, is one of the coolest things I've seen a game do in a long time. And it's not complicated. It's just awesome.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it in just a few words. It's not complicated, but it's really well done.
Yeah.
And let's see. You want to talk a little bit about the modifiers? You've mentioned a couple of them that you've done. I didn't use any of the modifiers. I didn't look at the menu. I don't really know what's in there. The sense that I got was basically any trinket you pick up, you can also just turn that on in the menu in a way. But I know there are some other things, like you said, remove some souls mechanics, make those tower ascension things a little more manageable. Like, can you, for my benefit, for the audience's benefit, talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, so the game does provide modifiers, and the game also has feats. The feats are basically achievements, but like on the Switch version, they're just called feats because the Switch doesn't have achievements. And then there's a modifier menu where you can adjust how the game plays. And there are some modifiers that don't exist. Like you cannot take the knockback off of getting hit because that is key to playing of this game. They didn't let you take that away. Mm-hmm. You can't like turn off burrowing or anything. You can extend it though, or make it unlimited. But yeah, basically you can use these modifiers and turn them on and off. You can create a favorites list. They have like groupings like to make the game easier, to make the game harder. The feats aren't just for making the game easier. There are a ton for making the game harder. Actually, as of the day we're recording, I just released my written review of the game where I actually looked up the number, and it's 255 different modifiers by the time you beat the game. They're not all unlocked from the beginning. I think like half of them are, and then you get a ton more of them after you finish the game and go back in for New Game Plus, which this game has. But they do a variety of things. Like, yeah, on the tower ascensions, you can turn off the surge line. It just removes it. It's the same thing. You just remove the surge line, so it never resets. You'll just eventually get to the end. Made those a dream and made them way more fun to play and explore. There's a classic one, Infinite Health, where you don't take damage. So if you're stuck in a place where you can solve the puzzle and you know how to do the platforming, but the enemies are too hard, you can turn it off. You can also turn off falling in pits. So like on difficult sections, if you just can't get the platforming down, you're not stuck. You can turn that on to get across. There are a bunch of others too. You can add underlabs, so there's more checkpoints. You can remove underlabs, so there's less checkpoints. You can make yourself take half damage or 75% less damage, or you can make yourself take double damage. There is a huge variety of them, and it's incredible that they took this vision of their game and went, but we also want to allow you to play how you want. Like Dave was saying, I was able to turn this game into not a Souls game. You can turn it off so you don't lose bones on death. And there was another one. Oh, and the one where you just can heal whenever. And so it just makes it basically a Castlevania Zelda hybrid, which is like, I didn't turn off the plasma one, but I did turn off the losing bones on death. Of course, by the halfway through the game, I think I only would have lost my bones once or twice at that point, but still it made me feel better. The only gripe I have with the modifier thing is that if you turn modifiers on, the game will warn you, but it turns off feats. You cannot earn achievements anymore or feats.
Yeah.
I think this is bullshit. I think that I'm going to get on my accessibility soapbox for a second. It doesn't hurt literally anyone if I can get an achievement for beating every boss in the game because I used infinite health. I still beat those bosses. Like, I think this is... I don't like this. I get why they did it, and I respect it. And ultimately, it didn't matter. Like, I was annoyed at first, and then I forgot about it because I was also, again, playing on the Switch 2, where it doesn't really track achievements anyway. But I just, like, if it's, oh, you didn't really get it, I mean, they're all fake points and fake like it's none of it's real. And so like, I just think deactivating them, it doesn't make sense to me, because there are tons of games that let you modify it or let you adjust stuff and you can still get the achievements. And so I just don't see who this is hurting other than some kind of punishment. It's still some kind of punishment for using these modifiers. And that's the thing I hate most about accessibility. I should not be punished in any way for using them, because then that makes me feel like I'm less than for using them. And that's the whole thing that I rage against when I push for accessibility in games.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The only group that would be hurt by allowing you to get achievements with modifiers are gatekeeping trophy hunters. And I don't give a shit what gatekeeping trophy hunters think.
Exactly.
I have lots of friends of mine love getting trophies and love getting platinum trophies, and I think that is like, I don't personally understand it, but I see why you would have fun doing it. Yeah. It's not when I say I don't understand it, I mean I am not personally motivated by a trophy, but I get why people like doing it. My understanding of that stops if you are then like, and I got the platinum trophy, and if you turn on the modifiers, you are not like me. I don't give a shit about stuff like that, and I think that those people can get fucked. Like, who gives, like you said, it's fake at the end of the day. Like, you did the thing, you got the trophy, but like at the end of the day, you're not better than somebody else for having gotten the trophy, the platinum trophy or something. And the real trophy hunters that I know, many of whom have been guests on the show, they're my friends. None of them are gatekeeping assholes about it. And so I get like a lot of game companies really do care about the trophy hunters as a subset of their base of players. But I don't think that the gatekeeping trophy hunters need to be catered to. That's my soapbox.
And to be clear, I don't think I don't think that Yacht Club is catering to them. I think like, other Team Cherry and other companies before them that don't even put modifiers in this game, they had a vision of it. Like, we only want people who aren't using the modifiers to be able to get the feats. So be it. It's not the end of the world. It was a complaint for me. It was a knock in my review. I just think it's silly at the end of the day. That said, the fact that they included the modifiers and included so many of them that do break the game wide open if you use them is awesome. And the fact that they also included ones that make the game harder, I think is also brilliant. I think that like it caters to both audiences, and like I am telling you, like, thankfully, I only used infinite health a couple of times. It was mostly like I was at the very last room of a long puzzle and had no health and didn't want to die and start at the beginning of the puzzle again. But like every boss I beat without infinite health, I learned the fights. Like, I can still do my own challenges. But at the end of the day, like, having that to fall back on if I'm really stuck is a nice thing to have. And the fact that Yacht Club went above and beyond for it, and then have even wackier game breaking, graphic breaking, like there's stuff that affects how the characters look. And like,
there's a great article that Reb Valentine wrote for Kotaku where it was like, I turned on every modifier and the game is insane now. Like that kind of thing.
And I love that. I love that this game has that. And other games, like, I've said in other places, like I loved Silk Song. I beat the hell out of that game. I 100%ed it basically, but I needed to use mods to do it on PC because Team Cherry wouldn't give me the option. And that's fine. But like, I do like when games include that stuff. There have been a lot of games that have come out, indie games especially, over the last few years that like have these kinds of accessibility options that make the game playable for people who otherwise like might not even been able to approach it. Or, for example, like if you have a young child in your life that wants to play a game like this for the first time, but you don't want them to be completely crushed by it, you can turn on these things and just let them mess around in it, right? I still think of the fact that like my spouse, Sarah, is a huge fan of Control and the Control universe because Remedy, towards the end of that game's life cycle, gave you basically a ton of accessibility tools so you couldn't die and you could just experience the story. And Sarah would have never, I think, made it through a shooting game like that if she didn't have access to that. And so, like, that's why I think they're important, is allowing folks who would otherwise miss out on awesome experiences get access to those things. And so, I applaud them for this, though I think it's bunk that the feats got turned off. Does that mean that I'm going to replay it on PC and try and get the feats without them? Probably, but not right now.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that they put it in there, and I've long since like lost any notion of like well, if they put in difficulty, then as soon as the game gets hard, I'm going to bump the difficulty down and I'll deny myself of like that bullshit. Like,
it's nonsense.
I had that thought at a certain point in my life, and it's so far gone now. It's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And like, if you do that, who gives a shit? It's your game. Turn the difficulty down.
Yeah.
My disdain is really just for the people who want to lord achievements over other people, or complain that like, I got the achievement for 100%ing the game without turning on any modifiers, and this person turned on modifiers and they got the achievement too. It's not fair. Like, the disdain I have for those people is why I'm like, Yacht Club should just give everyone the fucking achievements. Like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a group of gamers that needs to be catered to in any way.
Correct.
Like, just let people have the achievements. At the end of the day, you're not taking them with you when you die, you know? With that out of the way, I think we should talk about the music. We have not talked about it yet. We did the same thing when we were doing the Pyre episode, me and AJ, where I looked at the clock and I was like, it's an hour and a half in. We haven't talked about the music. What the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
Talking about other stuff. The Shovel Knight soundtrack introduced me to Jake Kaufman. And I am just like blown away by what he can do with chiptunes. And this soundtrack to me, number one, really good. No surprise there. But I was listening back to it, and there's a lot more variety in the types of songs because you're moving through a world. You've got like a town and stuff, and it's not evoking the same type of game that Shovel Knight was. You get a different feel from this soundtrack. It sounds more diverse to me. There are bangers aplenty, but there's also a lot of like atmospheric stuff that comes with making a game like, you know, calling back to a Zelda, for example, as opposed to a Mega Man, that's just bangers wall to wall, right? It might not have as many things that like get stuck in my head and kind of dominate my headspace the way the Shovel Knight soundtrack did, though there are a couple that are just like, they're permanent parts of my being now. But overall, more songs, more diverse songs, still a fantastic soundtrack. And here's where I wrote in the notes, Matt, go off.
So I've been a fan of Jake Kaufman for a long time. Shovel Knight was the first, but then Shantae shortly after was the second. Jake Kaufman has done the music for most of the Shantae series. Now I think he mostly does arrangement, and there have been other composers who've worked on the more recent ones. But he also did, like, he's basically done almost every game for Way Forward, and obviously every game for Yacht Club. He did Contra 4. He did, a ton of like other Way Forward games that are not coming to mind. There was a Ninja Turtles game they did way back when. Like, you pull up his list of games, and it's incredible the kinds of stuff that he's worked on over the years. And then he has been the main person for Way Forward and Yacht Club for a long time now. But like, I should say here also, by the time you're hearing this, you'll also probably be able to either shortly after or just before hear an incredible interview that Jen and I got to do with Jake Kaufman. He came on our podcast, and it was incredible to get to talk. Like, I've interviewed a ton of people that I really respect and love, but like, this was like the gold standard of guest for Jen and I. I just never thought we'd get to talk to him. So getting to do that was incredible, but also gave me a ton of insight into the soundtrack that I would have never had otherwise.
Right.
And like, the thing that we talked about first and foremost that will go in more depth in that episode, which if it's out after, Dave can link to it in the show notes, giving you more work to do.
Is it before or after July 8th?
It will be after July 8th.
Okay, so coming soon.
Coming soon. But the thing that's really interesting here is like Jake Kaufman got to do a variety of genres here that he's never done before. Shovel Knight was mostly fantasy based and like had a certain vibe that he stuck within. But like I remember talking about, so my favorite track on the whole soundtrack is Gator Gallop, which is the Knox's Bayou track. It just rocks. And when talking to Jake about it, he's like, yeah, this is Zydeco music from like New Orleans. And like, he loves that kind of music and has never had a reason to recreate it. But the minute he knew there was going to be a Bayou stage, like that's the first place he went to and started to construct that. Also, the banger that is Bone Beach is basically unbeatable. Like that track is so awesome and has this kind of rocky vibe. And it's unlike anything I've heard. And the funny thing is, Jake Kaufman technically composed all of this music in the Game Boy Color's range. Now, not the hardware Game Boy Color, because apparently the sound chip for the Game Boy Color, which Jen and Jake went off on the episode about, I don't have the technical know-how, but basically what we found out from Jake is that the original sound card for the Game Boy Color actually had a slot for an expansion to add range to it or more channels or whatever. But you couldn't actually do it on a Game Boy Color. But because it was a natural thing that you technically could do, he allowed himself to do that for this game. But otherwise, it's all sounds that only the Game Boy Color could produce, which is incredible. And I love that limitation. But, you know, there's something so brilliant about a soundtrack that you can make it sound orchestral or like Zydeco or like, you know, dance music or, you know, like a horror movie without any actual real orchestration. It's all beeps and boops. And that's endlessly impressive to me and why I like Jake's work so much. I mean, you know, the thing about the Shantae series is that as it's gone on, they have like the modern ones, especially like Half Genie Hero on the Switch, they used orchestration. They used instrumentation that wasn't just electronic, wasn't just MIDI. And obviously that sounds awesome, but when you can get that same vibe in something a little more condensed like this, it always blows my mind. And as a giant music nerd, I will always love it. And the fact that I got to talk to someone so prolific about his process, like he talks about in the interview, how we asked, was there any pressure after Shovel Knight and how incredible that soundtrack was to do that again with me? And he just went, yeah, that was. It kept me up at night. Like, he was completely honest about how he was sweating, making another big hit for a studio that he loves partnering with and working with, and how to do it. And it ended up being, I think I would agree with you that there are less earworms, but I still think this is the superior soundtrack in diversity. I think ultimately I will always love Shovel Knight's soundtrack more, like I will always love Shovel Knight more. I think it's because it came first more than anything else. But it is endlessly impressive what Jake did with this soundtrack. And you're absolutely right. There are a ton of bangers, but the ones that aren't bangers are still atmospheric music that absolutely adds a depth to the game. The reason the story of this game has a punch, besides just the writing, as you know, few and far between as it is because the music that punctuates it also enhances that. Yeah.
Being earwormy is not, you know, a signifier of quality. Like it can be, but I mean, there's a lot of really dog shit pop songs that get stuck in my head. Doesn't mean that I think that they're very good or, you know, original or anything like that. But to your point, like there is a lot of good atmospheric stuff in here, and it fits with, like, I think that combination of the limitations they put on music and on visuals, like it sounds like they were, you know, gave themselves a little bit of leeway in both of those cases outside of what the Game Boy Color could do. But it really gives this game a really consistent aesthetic tone that you can have a bunch of different genres of music in here, but it still feels like it belongs in the game because they're not going crazy with like, okay, so for this song, we're going to have a full orchestra, and then this song, we're going to have a jazz band, and then, you know, stuff like that. So it's great. We're very far into this podcast. People have heard plenty of music by this point.
Yes.
But it's really good. And I really enjoyed it. Great sound effects also. Like, don't often talk about that, but like the sound effects for for when you bone up. I'll never say that with a straight face.
Yeah, it'll always be funny. Bone?
And nor should I. Yeah. Can you imagine Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine just saying bone up?
I mean, I want that. I want that modded into the PC version. Someone to make a mod that just makes him say bone every time you bone up.
Every time you bone up.
I want that. It just needs to exist.
But great sound effects. I mean, the effects from like your weapon hitting stuff, the effects from getting a treasure, all of those things, they're really good. They sound like they belong in a Game Boy game. So I don't know, who exactly did the sound effects, but great stuff there too.
Yeah, there's a tactility to the sound in this game that I really love. Everything feels really sharp and physical in the space. And the sound font, both for the sound effects and for the music, is top notch. And I mean, that's Yacht Club's vibe. Like the best, like the only thing better than playing those games is listening to those games, because their soundtracks are always bangers. And like Jake did the soundtrack for Shovel Knight Dig and Pokken Dungeon as well, like everything. So like it's just, but those, like, he's playing off of what he's created before. This was wholly original, which is why I think he was more stressed about it, because it was starting from scratch. And I like absolutely knocked it the hell out of the park. And like, even if you haven't played the game yet, the soundtrack is available everywhere. It's actually, to promote this for him, his Bandcamp is 100% free. You can pay what you want, but he doesn't care. And he said this in our episode as well. If you pay $0 for all the soundtracks, as long as you have access to them. So if you want the soundtrack to Shovel Knight or any of its spin-offs or this game, just go get it and listen to it. It rules.
Yep. And maybe consider kicking a few bucks.
I mean,
over
absolutely.
There. I mean, like a $2 soundtrack is still a cheap as hell soundtrack for the great music you get there. So
without a doubt,
yeah, really good. So I think it's time for us to kind of wind down the non-spoiler part of this and start making our way towards that spoiler section. But before we get there, we do have to answer the question: who would you recommend play Mina the Hollower? Do you have any wrap-up thoughts, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, I think this game, while I initially felt a pit of disappointment, once I met the game where it lived, I absolutely fell in love with it. I think that's true of all of Yacht Club's work. I think that I really, at the end of the day, loved my time with it, and I think the ability to customize the experience to however I want it to be, but feel just right while still feeling challenged, is what makes this kind of a perfect video game, that you can kind of design the experience to however you want and feel comfortable with the modifiers. As far as who I'd recommend it to, I think anyone who's curious about an action RPG or an action adventure game and have seen a lot of top-down Zelda games but have not played them, I think this is a great starting point, with the understanding that if you're playing it at face value, it's a huge difficulty spike in the beginning. But also, if from the beginning you don't care about that and want to just hit the modifiers before you even boot it up and customize the experience however you want, do it. I think this is really one of the more accessible games to anyone who's either a fan of the genre or who's never played it, and especially since it kind of plays with the format of the Metroidvania and the action RPG in a way that makes it feel wholly unique, that I don't think there's really anything else like it. And, and the easy recommend is, if you've played Shovel Knight before or any of the Shovel Knight spinoffs and went, yeah, I love what Yacht Club does, but I didn't buy Mina, you're wrong, and you should go buy it, because like this is just, if you love their previous work, you're gonna love this game. I think it's phenomenally done and is absolutely worth your time. I don't think there's anyone I wouldn't recommend it to, at least me. I think that because it's only, first of all, it's only $20. Like, that is ludicrous to me, and like, because I would have paid more for that, at least up to 40, maybe 50. Like, I think this is a whole ass game, 20 hours of content. The fact that it's $20 and that you have an accessibility menu that runs the gamut of what you can do, I think this is approachable for literally anybody, unless you hate combat, then maybe not. But beyond that, I think this is for anyone.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of the types of recommendations that I would make there. I'll add on one more thing, and this is something that actually Shovel Knight got me thinking about, and it's something I have on my list of, like, I might do a topic episode about this someday. But if you enjoy modern developers, especially indie developers, taking retro game principles and putting them in a modern package, this is a great example of that, because it's kind of shunning some modern trends. Like, every action game is a dodge and parry, fest now. Especially parrying is like, I I play and enjoy a lot of those games, but I watch a lot of trailers. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to be parrying in this game too.
Yeah.
And this game is like, no, we're taking it back to before parrying was a big thing in games. And it's all about positioning and spacing and stuff and being intentional about what you're doing, like stuff like that. So if you like the ways that games like Shovel Knight and The Messenger and UFO 50 like took retro principles but put them in a bit more of a modern package, Mina the Hollower fits right in with those types of games that I think do it really well.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's more modern. That doesn't mean it's easier. It's just, friendlier in certain directions, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit less punishing. So yeah, I'll just add that on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think studios doing games that look retro, but, I think of even RPGs like Chained Echoes and Sea of Stars, like these games that look classic by design and art, but then add mechanics that modernize them. Absolutely. Like if you like that kind of aesthetic, like Jen and I like to say, these are games that play like how we remembered these games used to play. I think of like the modern beat 'em ups, like the Ninja Turtles game, right? The newest one, Shredder's Revenge, plays like how I thought Turtles of Time looked like back then, but absolutely does not. Like this is that vibe, right? Something that could never run on those classic consoles, but give you that vibe. This is absolutely another one of those, and totally worth your time.
Yeah, I don't know that this plays like I remember a Zelda or something playing.
Fair enough.
I think a little bit more with Castlevania, but yeah,
but yes,
I get the idea there. And so if someone is looking for something like that, if it's like, well, you played all those games before and you want something inspired by it, then yeah, I think this is excellent. And because it has that modifier menu, I really struggle to think of who I wouldn't recommend this to.
Yeah.
And any one of those modifiers or any like combination of them is not going to like take away the heart of what I think this game is best at.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's all play Mina the Hollower. It's a really good game. So you mentioned the interview with Jake Kaufman not too long ago, and now is the time where we'll talk about your podcasts. So we mentioned that interview takes place on the Fun and Games podcast. And you also do Reignite. You've got a lot of other stuff that you do as well. So this is the time. Please tell people about your work, where they can find it, and maybe some other stuff they can look forward to.
Sure. So I am at AK Stormageddon. I host 2 podcasts, like Dave said. If you don't know who I am at this point, I don't know what else to do at this point, because I just never shut up and I don't go away.
They're just new here.
They're just new here.
They're
just tuning in for the Mina episode. They're new to
we
your
love
show.
That. Thank you.
We
Thank you
love that.
for being here.
Thank you. Seriously though, I do 2 podcasts, both video game related. The first show is Fun and Games, which I host with the incredible Jen Moonen. The broad mission of the podcast. Well, the broad mission of the podcast is that what we like to say is that every game is somebody's favorite, and it's impossible to play every game. And we like to cover broad topics like console retrospectives, genre retrospectives, interviews with developers, composers, voice actors. We talk about stuff like signposting in games or emergent gameplay, which Dave guested on an episode about that. Mostly because I stole the topic directly from him. We do a variety of different things within and around the games industry. We cover live events. We recently recorded a live podcast that'll be out by the time you hear this, where we interviewed the owners of Wonderville, which is an indie arcade bar here in Brooklyn. Whole sorts of different stuff. And, if you like broad topic discussions about video games and related to gaming and the gaming industry, then it's definitely worth you checking out. We also do a sub-series within that feed called Side Quests, which is a solo host every episode talks about a game they love and why they love it. Dave has done too many to count and is on the hook for many more.
That's correct.
And so it's basically an excuse for someone with or without podcast experience to talk into even a voice memo app on a phone and share their thoughts about something they deeply and truly love. I've done a bunch of them. We've had a ton of great guests on there. And we've covered a wide range of games. And if you're listening to this podcast and you'd be interested in doing one, you can reach me at matt@funandgamespod.com and pitch me on what you want to do, or I'll send you the list that we have. Because, again, it's not just for other podcasters. It's literally for anyone and everyone. So I really love that series. I'm sure before too long we'll have someone covering Mina the Hollower. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Then
it can't be me. I've got too many.
Yeah, you're already committed. It's too much.
Yeah.
I also do a podcast with the incredible Frankie Bradley Lestrange called Reignite. It started as a Mass Effect play-along podcast with the original trilogy, basically under the concept, what if we made Commander Shepard just like us? Like, what if we played the game and made decisions as if we were Commander Shepard, and then discussed those decisions, and more importantly, discussed which alien we wanted to make out with, because that's all people really play those games for. We then finished the trilogy and went on to Andromeda, which I hadn't played. Then from there, have now moved on to the Dragon Age series. By the time you're hearing this, we're going to be wrapping up Dragon Age 2 and moving on to Inquisition. It's a really great show. We veer into topics about, social justice and other things, and compare, there are kind of a lot of similarities between what happens in Dragon Age 2 and maybe say what's going on in the US right now. So, maybe more comparative than I'd like. Yeah, maybe more comparative than I would like, but still, there's a reason we say all Templars are bastards. But it really is a deep dive. We've had guests, and it's a great way to experience those games if you've never experienced them before and you want something to play along with. And we don't know where we'll go after Dragon Age, but thankfully we've got a long time before we have to worry about that. Besides that, I occasionally stream and I make videos on Instagram from time to time. If you want to follow all the things that I'm doing, you can just go to djstormageddon.com. It has links to both my podcasts, the Patreon for fun and games, all of my written articles, which I've been doing over the last few years, tons of other stuff, my merch store, basically a one-stop shop for everything that I do.
There you go. Well, we've talked a lot about fun and games and stuff on there. You and Jen do great work over there today. I was just listening to your roguelikes episode with Jill and Danny, which was a good conversation. And people who like the types of discussions that we have on this show will like what's going on Fun and Games for sure. And hey, I look forward to when you finish Dragon Age Inquisition and the Veilguard in 2032 or however long it takes you to get through those. I look forward to you going through Baldur's Gate and KOTOR.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'll be there. When I replay one of those games, I always tell you this, but I'll play along with you all.
If you don't think I haven't tried to seed those polls and get those games voted for. Haven't won yet, but we've tried a few times.
Yep, we'll do it eventually on a long enough timeline. I will play Mass Effect. That's a thing that will happen on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
So definitely recommend people check out Matt's work if discussions on fun and games sound interesting to you, or playing along through BioWare games sounds interesting. Please check those shows out. There will be links in the show notes as always for those. So as the spoiler break is playing, you can queue up some episodes for something to listen to after you're done with this one. So with that being said, I did most of my plugs at the top of the show. The only one I didn't do is the Discord server, which is a great place. We had a Mina the Hollower channel while the game was new that was pretty active with people playing and sharing how their playthroughs were going. And we just love to have new people in there. So if you'd like to join us, there's an invite link for you in the show notes for Discord as well. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to do our spoiler section soon for Mina the Hollower. All right, before we get to full spoilers for Mina the Hollower, I would like to say thank you to the patrons who help support the show. A big hearty thank you and shout out goes out to Chris Nelson, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Rick Firestone, Nick Ficori, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rigamort, Silcanet, Levi, John E., Aliasi, Aaron, Alan Kress, Doug T., Retro Overdrive, Magic Crow, Curly Bright, Ian L., Steve Yeager, Trash Dog Actual, Delaney and Jack McBride, Ethan Young, Michael Lassen, Michael Matuzak, Keith B., A Quack a Day, Jake Martin, Mike Caniff, Kugel, and many more. All of these fine folks have gone to patreon.com/realdavejackson and chosen to kick me a few bucks a month to support the work that I'm doing here on the show. It's much appreciated. It helps out in a lot of different ways, and I would love it if you would consider doing the same. Once again, that's patreon.com/realdavejackson. Head on over, check out the tiers, and I thank you for doing so. And with that being said, let's get back to full spoilers for Mina the Hollower. All right, we're back. It's full spoiler time for Mina the Hollower, and the customary disclaimers at the front. Number one, we're not going to talk about everything. There is more story, more conversations and stuff within the game that we're just not going to mention. This is never the lore and story explainer podcast. We're just going to talk about our experiences. We are going to talk about the ending and stuff like that. And then the other part is we're not going to go in a linear order through the game, or the suggested order for this game. So if you're maybe halfway through the game, this is a good time to stop listening, come back after you've finished, because we are going to spoil stuff soon, such as the best weapon in the game, which is not the one that we started with. It is the Gunblade, which I forget the actual name for it.
It's the Battery Buster.
The Battery Buster. Okay, so what the Battery Buster is, there's two extra weapons that you can find. There's the Battery Buster, and there's a shield weapon.
Yeah, the Guardian Casket, which is basically a casket shield.
That's badass. I love that. I tried it. The casket shields thing is that you can block because it's a shield. And then if you time it right, you parry and counterattack, which is cool. Like, give you the option to opt into that style of play. Don't make the whole game a parry fest. If you want to do it, you can. But the one that both of us used for most of the game, after we found it, was the Battery Buster, which it is a gun. So you shoot from long range, like you do with a gun. It has a charge shot when you upgrade it that you can do. And then you refill the gun's ammo by hitting stuff with the sword version of it, and you press a button to swap between the modes. So again, very Bloodborne to have like these two weapon modes that you switch between. And first of all, having a long range attack, not a sub weapon, but just your regular ass weapon, was so helpful that I couldn't have given that up. But the sword part of it also feels good too. It basically feels like Zelda swinging the sword. So I use that, with the exception of one boss, which I'll talk about. I used the gun the rest of the game.
Yeah, basically me too. I found the casket in the world first because it's in September if you know the right place to go. And so I found the casket. And the problem with finding them out in the world, though, unfortunately, is they automatically equip. And if you are nowhere near the Underlab, guess what? You're boned. You're using that weapon.
Yeah, you're using a brand new weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. And so but the casket was fun to use, but yeah, I don't like parry in most games, so I'm not going to opt into parrying. But the minute I think I might have bought the Battery Buster and then found the upgrade out in the world, but the minute I bought it and started using it, I was like, "Oh, I'm Mega Man. I'm Mega Man in a top-down action game. This is amazing." But like you said, when it transforms into this like mace sword thing, it has a decent range, and it like you push yourself back a little bit when you hit things. And so like it really is a great combo. And like basically as you get, I would use it as a melee weapon often. And as I'd get desperate or low on health, I'd stand back and start shooting. And like you per swing that hits anything, an enemy, a candlestick, anything, it charges back up. And so like during boss battles, like if the boss has shots that you can hit, or it has like minions that it shoots out, all of that recharges it. And so it just made it my go-to weapon with little exception. There were a few bosses where I got really stuck and would try different weapons to see if it would go better, and it usually wouldn't. But I loved the Battery Buster. I thought it was a brilliant weapon. And so the thing that we were hinting at before is if you played any of the PAX demos or even the pre-release demo, you had access to the three weapons and you could choose one of them. The Whisper and Vesper, which are the daggers, the Blast Strike Maul, which is the gun maul, like heavy hammer combo, and or the Night Star, which is the mace. The other two, I didn't know there would be more than those three weapons, because also in the case, in the demo, there were only 3 weapon slots, those 3 weapons. But in this one, there are the empty slots. So it's like, oh, there are going to be more weapons. Interesting. And I had no idea there was a gun or a shield. And they're both awesome in different ways, but I loved using the battery buster basically the whole way through. There are definitely bosses I would not have beat if I didn't have a ranged attack so I could run the hell away.
It definitely helped in a lot of the bosses to be able to just like park on the other side of the arena and unload shots. But you do, because it only gets 6 or 8 shots. You have to get in and fight with the sword after that to refill your ammo. And in a lot of the bosses, like they'll spawn in ads, and so the ads are a way to refill your ammo.
Yep.
And so I didn't get mad at ads in boss fights in this game because it had a purpose other than just something else to keep track of. It's like my chance to refill ammo and stuff like that. I did have to switch weapons for one boss, and it was the brain in Bone Beach, which I've seen, in the various Discords, people talking about Mina. This seems to be people's least favorite boss. Yep. This is my favorite one. I loved it.
I hated him.
And I loved it because it felt the most like a Zelda boss.
Yeah, I can see that.
To have this thing, you do a specific thing to make its weak point vulnerable. Its weak point is extremely obvious what it is. Hit it in the, the eyeballs or whatever that are coming off of the brain. And you've got these things shooting you from these, parts of the wall, like shooting lasers and shit. It's like chaos on screen. It's like a Zelda boss with all the knobs turned to 11.
Yeah.
But I really liked it. And I had to switch back to the whip weapon because I needed some extra reach all the time. Like if I was out of ammo, I needed to still have that extra reach to reach over the pits and hit those things that are shooting the lasers. So I switched just for that. But I really loved it. I see all the people talking about how they hate it. I'm like, I can't relate. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it was one of my least favorite. I will say also the thing that the battery buster does that none of the other weapons can do is it can attack in all 8 directions. It can attack on diagonals.
Yeah.
Every other weapon can only attack up, down, left, right. There are no diagonals, but this one can fire. The melee attacks can't, but the range attacks can go in all 8 directions.
But the melee attack has like a 90-degree arc.
Yeah.
Like Link's sword, so you still get some coverage with it.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't love the brain though. That boss I needed the gun for because I couldn't get close to it. It would I get constantly clobbered. But the amalgam, which is one of the final bosses in the game, which is this creature made of other creatures, I tried switching back to the whip to see if I'd do better because of how he separates and spreads, but the ads would overwhelm me. So I eventually just went back to the gun and learned it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite boss in the whole game is just because of the vibe was the Mock Moon. I loved the Mock Moon fight. It's a pain in the ass when you first find it because it's a hidden boss in Nox's Bayou. But it is basically a small moon that like has the same vibe as the Majora's Mask moon. Just looks creepy as shit. And it flies around, and it was a fun fight. It was a pain in the ass to figure out the patterns, but I really loved fighting it. And then my second favorite is probably it's just before September or in September. It's the Madhouse, which is literally you go into this house. And
it's the house from Final Fantasy VII. Yeah.
It springs to life with legs and arms and wings and like eyeballs in the windows. That's the boss where I figured out that even though in theory, because it's big, you should be able to walk behind the house, like you know where its shadow is. Unfortunately, it's sprite-based, and so if you touch the roof of it, even though the roof is definitely nowhere near you in the 3D space, you still take damage. And that made me struggle with that fight for a while till I figured it out.
Yep. I don't think I struggled much with that, but I did get hit assuming that I could walk behind it because, it's a house.
Yeah.
It's vertical, but it's not the way it works. I looked at screenshots of the moon. I'm not sure that I found that.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
My favorite was the brain. I like the amalgam boss that you mentioned there too, because partly for story reason, because it's like all the fucked up victims of the spark generator experiments just glommed into one.
Yeah.
I mean, you fight that boss in like every Castlevania game
basically,
too. So,
yes. And it falls apart as you try to kill it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the amalgam boss was fun because it was what it meant for the story was really great. This game had a lot of really cool bosses. I don't think there were any that I really like. Even though I didn't love the brain, I didn't really hate it. Like, it was still a fun boss fight. But no, I was going to talk about something when we were talking about the amalgam and it fell out of my brain, but it'll come back to me eventually.
It happens.
Yeah.
This is like partly because of the boss fight, but partly because of what leads up to it. But I loved the chase stuff through Septemberg and Crowtown with the I forget the name of the killer.
The something like man. Yeah, I can't remember what his name was.
The pumpkin man or some bullshit like that. Said lovingly. But it's like a Resident Evil type like pursuer enemy that like pops up and starts chasing you, and you can't fight it right away. Just have to run away from it. And so it's a nice change of pace in there. I love that whole area with like the big lawnmowers trying to take you out, with that thing chasing you. They're like crucifying people out there. Like the vibes out there are fucked. Everything's fucked out there. And then you have that boss fight against that thing at the end, and it's really fun. So that was, probably, without thinking about it too hard, probably my favorite like region of the map is the September region, Crowtown, that stuff, because it's got that Halloween type vibe, and also these big like agriculture like combines or some shit chasing, trying to get you. Really like that stuff.
Yeah, I think my favorite area is the backwaters and Nox's Bayou. I mean, the music alone, like the minute I got into Nox's Bayou, it was like the first time I fought Minoko in Expedition 33. Like, I put down the controller and just like started to vibe. It was the same thing here with Nox's Bayou. Like, as soon as I heard that Zydeco music, I was like, oh, what is this? And like, but I love the area. I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get across the water because I didn't think to hold the button. But so there's shallow water and deep water. The shallow water you can walk in, and the deep water you fall in like a pit. And I kept dying over and over again. I was like, what the hell? So I finally looked it up. You just had to hold the button down. If you hold the burrow button down,
you can burrow in the water.
Right.
Yeah.
You can like swim for a little bit in the water and then pop out. And I really liked that, the way they constructed the puzzles. I didn't love the fishing sub-weapon, but I did love that fishing was a sub-weapon. I love that you had to get the fishing rod from the one area, and then it becomes available everywhere else, and you can use it to fish up enemies in each area, and then there's like a hidden boss if you fish the special fish from every area, because when you get the fishing rod, one of the two Gator brothers gets eaten by a big fish, and if you find all the hidden fish, you can go back and then fight that fish that swallowed the other brother. Like, that kind of stuff is really what I loved about this area. And the platforming wasn't too bad. The puzzles weren't too bad. And like the enemies were of a variety that didn't feel overwhelmingly frustrating. So I really enjoyed that part of it too. I did like September also. I did hate the crows that threw fire though, because then other things would catch on fire. And next thing you know, you're surrounded by fire. It was like, that was the worst. But yeah, I really did love Nox's Bayou, and still think it's a banger of a music track.
Yeah, the fishing rod's a good example of like the freedom that they give you with creativity, because you can use the fishing rod to like grab items that you can't reach. Like, that's one of those things where I was like, there's a bunch of chests that are like out of the way or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I use this trinket to let you attack while burrowing, and I could like get through this thing, and someone's like, oh, I use the axe sub weapon to throw it and break the thing, and then I use the fishing rod to grab the item that came out of the chest, and I was like, I didn't even know you could do that. That's
even better. I didn't know this till I watched the completionist video on Mina the Hollower, that you can also use the fishing rod as a hook shot, but only with enemies. If you hit an enemy with the fishing rod, it pulls you to the enemy. When I saw that, I went, what the fuck? I had no idea. And like, it would have changed so much of the game.
Yeah, but this is what we mean. It's like, whatever they did to get across that gap, I had a different strategy to get across that gap. And the game is like, and there's also probably like 8 other combinations of things that you can use to get across that gap. Yeah. Like, that's what's really cool about this, without restricting you to that. We're giving you a hook shot and you can't get there until you get the hook shot type of design. And I love playing a game with that Zelda structure. But the way that they encourage creativity with your tools here is just, it's super cool. And I picked up the fishing rod. I did the fishing mini game once. I was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm, for the people who want it, cool. I'm just not doing it ever again. And then I find out you can use the fishing rod for so much more. And I'm like, fuck, Yacht Club. Yacht Club. Look at them.
I remember what I wanted to say before. The first secret boss I found was by accident. If you buy more than one thing from the blacksmith in town, you get pulled underneath to fight his brother who actually crafts the weapons, and you can't buy more stuff till you beat him. And that's the one where I beat my head against it till I beat him, but it was so fun. Apparently he is his design, if you look at his face, is based on Egoraptor. Egoraptor was a super producer of the Kickstarter and got to design a boss. Also, there's a hidden boss. There's basically a hoedown spot in the town that burrowers aren't allowed in, but if you get the music box pieces to go in, you fight the shark boss that apparently is a rhythm game boss, like Souls bosses. And it's based on Gerard from The Completionist. He was also a super producer, which I didn't know until I watched his video. But like, I love that shit too, is there's bosses you'll never see if you don't do certain things. And like, I loved fighting the blacksmith boss. I love you have to use the lava to weaken him and then attack him. It was just so brilliantly designed. But there's tons of stuff like that you can miss in this game, which I also think makes it really awesome. Like, now that I know about the boss based on Gerard, I want to go back and fight it because it's a rhythm game boss specifically. And I know that's like a big thing in the Souls communities, that there's a tons of bosses that are like based on rhythm and the dodge. There's at least one in Dark Souls, I think, that is like that you can kind of follow a rhythm to like not get hit by or whatever.
There's one that people are like, this boss fights in a different time signature, and I'm like, I don't know about all that. But Sekiro, definitely. I'll give you Sekiro on that one. But yeah, I didn't get into that music house, so I had no idea there was a boss fight in there. And knowing that it's like a rhythm based thing, that's super cool. Any other like standout areas or stuff like that before we start really talking about story?
I mean, the final area, the orrery, was awesome. Also, like, beautiful. So in Mina the Hollower, you can find mirrors scattered throughout the world that basically function like mirrors, where you walk up to it and you can see Mina in it. If you click on it, you can change Mina's facial expression, which is cute. I was like, oh, they have a way to change her facial expression. But if you push forward against the mirror, which why would you do that? You can go into them. And every time you do that, there are 4 mirrors in different areas. You unlock parts of the final area, well, the second to final area, the orrery, and you can then access that main area. And like, I don't think I did it till like the second or third mirror. And when I was standing in front of the mirror and then I hit forward by accident and then went through it and went, like, my jaw just dropped. I was like, God damn it, Yacht Club. How?
Well, because there's too many mirrors for them to not be something. And it doesn't happen right away when you press forward, but what does happen is like it does like a humming thing, and there's like a particle effect. Like you know that there's something happening. So I did figure that out. And then it became, you go in there and the path forward to the orrery is blocked by these colored blocks. And you follow the colors and you find, little signs that will give you a hint about where the mirror is in the next part. So I thought it was really fun to be like, almost like a scavenger hunt to go back to areas, like go back to the bayou after however many hours, go back to Septemberg. I remember finding a mirror there. I don't remember exactly where it is. Now I have a clue. I'm going to go try and find the mirror. And I thought that was a really fun part of the game, to unlock the final dungeon, and not the final dungeon, but that final region, we'll say. The orrery was a pretty fun dungeon. That is one of the Yuzo Koshiro composed tracks, is like the soundtrack in that area. And as soon as you get in there and that music starts going, you're like, oh, this is a bop. I love this. Yeah.
I also loved Coltrane Peak. I love the detail of there, because it's an ice area. When Mina dives into the ice, she's just swimming under the ice. Like it's just such a fun little detail. But I loved so I found love for the train boss fight, but it wasn't a great boss fight. But I liked the vibe of it more than actually doing it.
Yeah, it's my least favorite boss fight.
But like I liked that area. And this is the area. So to get to Coltrane Peak, and then eventually to get to other places, there are these train station locations, but something happened to the train and they need to repair it, and so you have to give them. You basically have to donate 10,000 bones to to fix the train. And once you do that, like you can get to a bunch of areas, but you cannot get to that dungeon at Coltrane Peak without doing it. And so like when I had to do that, I had just spent every last bone I had on stuff because I was like, all right, next area, better spend all my bones so I don't lose them. Hi, you need to give us 10,000 bones. Fuck! And so then I just grinded for an hour or two and got enough bones.
The good part about that is you can like put 4,000 in and they'll just stay there.
Yeah.
And then you can come back and put in more later. So that's how I did it. The train crash sequence was great.
So awesome.
The Thorn boss fight in the train track sequence was really hard.
Yes.
It's honestly probably the hardest boss in the game for me was that one right there.
Yeah.
But we got it done. And I liked going through all of the levels.
Yeah.
And then like some of the bosses were more fun than others. But there were no bosses where I was like, this is just horrible.
Yeah.
So credit for that, because I don't think you can just take that for granted that, you know, every boss fight is going to bottom out at like, Usually the worst boss fights in games are a lot worse than that.
That's true.
So I know that sounds like damning with faint praise, but they are generally pretty good in Mina the Hollower, especially for a game as hard as this. To have, I don't know about you, but like my ratio of deaths, like what killed me is like platforming number one by a mile.
Oh yeah, not even close.
And then like maybe like a long sequence between checkpoints where I just like get worn down and killed by an enemy or killed by a platform. And then like each boss, other than that Thorn fight on the train, I want to say each boss probably took between 1 and 5 tries, including the final boss. So like right in that sweet spot of like, yeah, I got to learn this boss.
Yeah.
It might happen on the first try, but I'm not going to sit here for 5 hours fighting the same boss over and over. Like my patience for that is at an all-time low now.
Yeah.
And this game, for as hard as it is, that's not why it's hard.
Yeah, totally. And I turned on the more underlabs modifier, which basically just makes that there are more of them. There's still some minor runbacks, but it's not as egregious. Mm-hmm. And even the larger ones aren't that egregious. But I turned that on just because I wanted to have more checkpoints and not be punished for running out of health. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I think that I died to platforming more than anything else. Also, the auto-scrolling room in the final dungeon can go fuck itself. The final dungeon is you go to...
It's the final room.
It's
the final one. It's literally the final platforming challenge.
The final boss is... We find out as Lionel. We'll talk about the story in a minute, but you go to his manor is the actual final dungeon, and the final room in the final dungeon is this long auto scroll area, and I couldn't do it. That was the room where I turned on the ability to walk on pits because I was just done. I tried 15 or 16 times to get through that room, and I said, you know what? Fuck it. I know it's the last room. I know I can do it, but I don't want to do it. And I just I just did that and got through it.
I found an exploit. It's not an exploit. It's part of the game. It's part of the ways the game is generous, where if you die, if you fall in a pit in the auto scroller level, and the pit that you fell off of is now off the screen to the bottom, it will respawn you up.
Yeah.
And that's how I got past the hardest part of that auto scrolling room. Is that just happened, and I was like, all right, well, on I go. Probably like 2 times, like 2 different sections of that, and I got through it that way. And so it's like, yeah, it's really hard, but it's also kind of generous, and also you can turn off no pit damage if you want. So, yeah. The final boss, like we mentioned, it is Lionel. And before we talk about the story, I mean, you said, and I generally like agree with you, that we don't see twists coming. This was one where I was like, Lionel's the bad guy from minute one of seeing him. I was like, we're gonna fight him at the end. So you fight him on like this electrified and like metal platform that restricts burrowing.
Yeah.
And so the gun was super helpful for that. And, maybe 2 tries. And then this game throws you a really nice bone where you don't have to do that again, because there's a phase 2 to the final fight. But once you beat phase 1, you're done with it forever.
Yeah.
So hell yeah, appreciate that. And then he turns into, the story is, as you find out, Thorn has been trying to stop you from fixing the spark generators. And you're like, Thorn, what the hell, man? And then eventually you're like, I think Thorn might be right. And then it turns out Thorn was right. And so your new plan is, I got to fix them so that I can then shut them down, right? Because they're the source of the monsters. The spark generators are out of control. And you find out the reason why is because Lionel's using it for his own gain. So Lionel, in a cutscene before this, Thorn confronts him at the top of a spark generator, and Lionel picks him up and throws him into it, which transforms him into like this pterodactyl monster. And so that's and Mina's like hiding behind a thing watching it happen. It's a really good scene within the engine of the game.
Yeah.
And he at the end of it, he turns into his final form, which is like he turns into this huge monster. And it's the same monster that attacked the ship at the beginning of the game. Thorn was the one who shipwrecked you, or not Thorn. Lionel
is the one
who shipwrecked you.
Yeah.
At the beginning. And I talked about how much I hated those tower ascension sections. When this boss fight was like, you're going to do the final boss phase 2 in the tower ascension, I went, oh, fuck you. Like, not in a fun way either. Like, are you about to ruin your game right now? But thankfully it's like way more manageable.
Yeah.
Actually kind of fun when you're not dealing with that surge line.
Yeah. And this final boss, like it's fun. It's hard, but it's not impossible. And the kill shot on it blew my mind. So when you're basically chasing Lionel to the top of the tower, and when you defeat him, you hit the top of the tower, and Mina launches up past him and then just dives down and burrows through his skull.
Yeah.
It's just fucking rad. It's metal as hell.
I was like, yes, when that was happening. It was so good.
And I'm wrong. Half the fight is going up the tower. Once you get him to half health, you hit the top of the tower. Because then at the top of the tower, when you're fighting him, he has this blast that does a ton of damage. But Thorn comes to your rescue, and you can hide behind Thorn for protection.
Yeah.
And then the game
basically... And it's like obvious that it's fucking Thorn up too. And you're like, you were right about this whole thing. Now you got turned into a monster, and now you're like getting shredded by this attack, protecting me from it. It's this is one of those things. I won't spoil the end of Shovel Knight, but for those who remember the final boss of Shovel of Hope, it's the exact same thing, the exact same type of deal where it's like they don't need to have it be like a cutscene or something. It's just part of the boss fight that tells the story of these characters in a really good way.
Yeah, totally. And the way the fight ends is like basically Thorn protects you from like this ultimate blast, starts to like his skin starts to come off, and then he falls to the side. You jump in the air and literally burrow through Lionel's skull. It's metal as fuck.
It's the best.
It's so awesome.
Reminiscent of, there's some Zelda games where Link like stabs Ganondorf through the forehead at the end of the fight, and it's like, hell yeah, let's go.
Get his ass.
I just beat Ocarina of Time, and that happens with Ganon in that. That's fun. And like the final boss, I was kind of worried that it would be like a hate fuck difficult final boss, and it's really not. It's very in line with other bosses that you fought recently. And they give you that checkpoint in between the phases of the fight. It's good. And like the storytelling within it is good. And then you get to the ending of this game, which I think is, number one, took me aback. And I think you texted me a similar sentiment after you finished it. Like when I finished it, I watched the ending play out, and I was like, this can't be the end of this. Cause it's so like, it's a pretty bad ending.
Yeah, so we should talk about before the Lionel boss fight. You go to confront Lionel.
Oh shit! Yes.
You go to confront Lionel, and he's in his dining room with a bunch of guests. And when you get there, he asks you to sit down with him. And Mina is outraged. Like, you're killing people. They're turning into monsters. How can you do this, Lionel? You'll pay for it. You're terrible. You're a monster.
Yeah, you're a monster. Yeah.
And Lionel goes, I'm a monster. And then basically, like the Chrono Trigger trial scene, stands up and literally runs record of your misdeeds. Every candle you broke, bosses you fought, trinkets you got that there's a trinket in the game where you have to break someone's kite to get the trinket. Crime. Certain bosses you beat. Crime. Breaking every candle in the game. Crimes.
It's like like for a couple of examples, there's an NPC with a house in Osix who has the bicycle sub weapon in his backyard. If you take it, they bring it up in that trial scene.
Yes.
It's like Mina and the little kid is in there and is like, Mina stole my bike.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck. There's over by the crypt level, there's a woman who's she's supposed to be digging graves, but she's like, there's something going on where she's like, I'm just not feeling digging graves. And then you can dig up the graves and get bones and stuff out of it. And so of course you're going to do gamer goblin shit and do all of it. And she shows up at the end and she was like, Mina stole my purpose in life. Like, I don't have any graves left to dig. All of this stuff.
All of the quests too. Like, there's a quest in the crypt, in the Queen's Crypt, to help this forlorn lover back to the mausoleum because his love transformed into the monster. Basically, the final boss it's the theory is that was his lost love. He's like, I have no will to live. Please lock me in this casket. And then, he doesn't come back
at the end,
but at the end, other people are like, "You even locked this guy in his casket." It's just it's so brilliant, and basically Lionel and everyone in the room turns it around on you and calls you a monster. And then the thing that this game also does that we haven't talked about is there are cutscenes. There are the equivalent of CG cutscenes, and they're just splash screens of incredibly high-res, awesome artwork. And
when you enter a new area.
Basically every new dungeon area you get one, and then there's a scene here where Lionel says, your disappointment. Lionel at the end asks you if you want to join him or not, and if you say no, he says, what a disappointment. It throws you out the window, and it shows that it's like a splash screen. And so when he throws you out the window, then you have to go back into the manor, and that's when it becomes the dungeon. Everything changes.
Yes.
It transforms. It's so cool. And so the theory here, and everyone in Osix is you're destroying these towers that help them live. And, there could be some analogs in life about this, consuming resources for technology.
Well, hold on now, Matt. Hold on. Video games aren't political. We know this.
Never.
No video game in the history of video games has ever had political messaging.
Correct.
Never.
Not
a single one.
It's not like data centers are consuming all of our life's resources and killing us. But anyway, so those analogs and in some of our reality now, when all of this is revealed that Mina's done all this stuff and is trying to turn off the towers, literally everyone turns on you. The enemies you're fighting through the final dungeon are mostly townspeople or people who work for Lionel. And then once you beat the game, you basically are run out of town. You go to talk to the captain, who is your only friend left, to leave, and they kill him from afar and get her before she gets away. And you run away in a rowboat and escape the island, while everyone is the splash screen is pitchforks and fire as the town burns and they run you out of town. It's crazy.
And then it's Mina the Hollower credits. And you're like, what the that can't be the end of the story. The other thing is after you beat it, it scrolls through the different areas of the game in a slideshow, and it's saying what's happening there now. And so it's Osix is in chaos and the town is burning. The crypt is being looted for everything that it's worth by people. It's just everything sucks everywhere at the end of the game. So we both had that reaction where we were like, that's the end of Mina the Hollower?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, you've just killed the town's symbol for prosperity. Things are demonstrably worse outside. The spark generators, if you're going to destroy them, you're going to make things worse. and there's monsters everywhere. And from everyone else's perspective, who just sees you going around doing gamer goblin shit, smashing stuff and stealing stuff and doing all this. Plus, then you kill Lionel, who's the face of prosperity. He runs an orphanage in town, you know, like you killed him. Yeah. People like news that Lionel was secretly evil is not going to spread quickly enough.
No.
For people for before the mob goes out on a witch hunt for Mina. So once I thought about that, and like, it didn't take me long to think about that, but it was like that initial shock of like, that's the end. Well, yeah, people wouldn't accept that, right? It's not like everyone in the universe is going to have like this mind connection and be like,
right.
Yeah, Lionel was evil. Good job, Mina. Our lives suck now, but thank you. Not going to be like that.
Yeah, the game bucks at the traditional hero trend of like, you saved the day, now everyone loves you. And also like the thing we didn't talk about is the plasma in the game that you use to heal yourself is actually a chemical it's the chemical that's mutating things. The second to last boss you fight is Lionel's assistant, who mutates himself into like a Cerberus monster to stop you. And like, you know, there are puzzles that you solve by actually healing people in the game, which is pretty cool. Like, you use one of your vials, which I love. Yep. But if you find out the vials and the experimentation that Lionel is doing at the orrery is the cause of a lot of this. And so like, everyone just like, once you beat him and it shows everything happening in the world, they run you out of town because you've ruined everything. You've destroyed the world basically. And like, the after the splash screen, like it says Mina the Hollower, Mina's in a boat, and like Osix is burning in the background, and then it's just rolling credits, and that's why I was gobsmacked. I was like, wait, this is the end? Like, it just feels bad, man, and it's supposed to. And then after the credits, there's this brief moment. So the boat is going to a refuge at an offshore island, and when you get there, you find Thorn, who is hurt but resting, and you can use one of your vials to heal Thorn. And though still injures, transforms back, and then the game ends. And so this is hinting maybe at a sequel, which I absolutely would play day one. Give me a game where I can play as Thorn and Mina and switch between them, like Mega Man X style. Like, give me that. I'm totally for that. But like, once I saw that, because I texted you before the credits were over, and then when I saw that, I went, okay, this feels more like a real ending, like there's some semblance of hope, because before this it was like hopeless.
Even if it's not teasing a sequel, it could be something where it's like, we're just gonna like lift it up a little bit at the end to give you like your last final thing about this is going to be something hopeful. Yeah. Even though Tenebrous Isle is probably fucked at the end of all this, like, people will persist and rebuild and stuff like that, but without the spark generators, life isn't probably going to be as prosperous as it was before. But I really love, this is what I meant earlier, where it was like, this story is not complicated, but they make smart choices in storytelling. They present it really well. And so you can have like a legitimate reaction and analysis of Mina the Hollower's story without it ever setting out to be the most complicated thing, or even setting out to be, you know, narrative focused or something like that. Like, this is just, I think this is like low key one of we can say this now after multiple games. The Shovel Knight expansions were kind of like this too. Like, Spectre Knight's expansion, I remember was pretty good story wise. Yeah. And the Shovel of Hope main game, we talked about a little bit about that, but I think we can like pretty confidently say this, that like, you're probably not going to pick up a Yacht Club game because you're expecting a great story, but they do know what they're doing and they do it really effectively. Yeah, totally. And also, Yacht Club has put out an official statement saying that there is no free DLC planned for this game, which totally makes sense, since they did like 8 to 10 years of DLC for Shovel Knight or whatever because of the Kickstarter goals. That doesn't mean there won't be paid DLC maybe sometime down the line, but they actually just did an AMA today as we're recording this, where they said no DLC at all is planned. Like, closing, like, sequel, maybe. They didn't say anything about that. Yeah. I don't know if anyone asked about that, but they did definitively say no Mina the Hollower DLC. Which totally makes sense. Yeah. And also, like, we know that they've announced Shovel Knight DX, which is a
modernized version of the original game with like better graphics and for current gen consoles, which sure, I'll probably buy it because it's Yacht Club. Who cares? But also like they were working on it. You know, it was publicly known that they were working on Shovel Knight 3D, and it got shelved basically because they were running into difficulties. And then also Mina seemed like a good path forward. So who knows if we'll get either of those next. But either way, like I loved the story in this game. I loved the characters. They're so well written. Mina and Lionel especially jump off the page. Thorn also. And make you care about these characters in a way that typically in this kind of a game you might not. Like, I love Zelda. I love the Zelda universe. Besides Tears of the Kingdom, I've never felt an emotional pull from most Zelda games. Like I just like them. Tears of the Kingdom made me cry, and you can listen to Dave's episode to hear about the story beats that would have done that. But like, there's no emotional impact of most Zelda games and most Castlevania games. But the way that Yacht Club writes and frames these stories, they really do pack a punch in a great way. And like, I felt terrible at the end of this game. I felt literally awful. Like the trial scene in Chrono Trigger, I love that game, but I don't feel that bad. Like you, especially since the consequences last for all of 10 minutes.
The trial scene in Chrono Trigger is neat.
Yes,
it is
it's a cool,
neat, especially for the year that game came out.
Yeah,
but even now today, if you play Chrono Trigger, like that is a neat thing that they did there.
Yeah, totally.
And the scene in Mina the Hollower is, again, turn it up to 11. They go through all those things, and I'm like, God, I did step on that leaf, didn't I? God damn it!
Yeah.
What? I smashed all those lampposts. I stole that bike. Like, yeah, I did do all that stuff. It got a genuine, like, it's more than this is neat.
Yeah,
that was really, really well done. And a neat little, like, shining the light on, you know, the types of things that you take for granted as normal activities in video games.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm going to break in everyone's house. I'm going to break all their shit in their house. I need treasure. Do you have any bone stone in your bookcase?
Yeah.
Like,
it's basically like, what if there were
apart.
consequences for all the houses Link broke into and smashed pots? And,
yeah.
like,
no, what if there were consequences for your actions? That's all it is.
It is, totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I love the ending. I love how it's like, yeah, they're not going to look at you as a hero because they don't know the truth, and the truth doesn't spread as fast as mob mentality spreads. So you got to run.
Yeah.
And that rules. So yeah, really good stuff. Fun going through this game. I think this game is fantastic. I expect to be talking about it again near the top of my game of the year list. This is just, it basically turned into, after that little adjustment period, it turned into everything that I hoped it would be, while not being what I thought it would be. But you know what? I didn't need another Zelda game. I still have Oracle games to replay, and I can replay Link's Awakening literally anytime I want to, if that's what I want. So, and I got to play fucking Pipistrello if I want a modern
It was
Zelda game.
so good. It was so good. You have to play it. I love that game. That's another one that also had great accessibility options. So yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So, Matt, thank you for taking 2.5 hours to talk about Mina the Hollower with me.
My pleasure. Yeah, I really love this game too. I agree with you. I will definitely replay it. I don't think it stands up to Shovel Knight, but again, I think that's more nostalgia and bias than anything else. I think also I just like 2D platformers more than top-down action games.
Sure. Yeah.
But like it's nothing to do with the quality. I think it has to do with my personal preference, but it's an incredible game. It's definitely in my top 10 of the year. Being near the top is tough because this is also the same year that I'm getting a sequel to Control, one of my favorite games of all time, and a game dedicated to my favorite comic book character ever, Wolverine, in the same fucking month within weeks. So my list this year is going to be contentious, but it'll definitely be on there because I think it's
true.
I think it's one of those games that really is just kind of mind blowing in the fact that it exists and that we get to play it.
Yeah. Not to turn this into a whole tangent, but I do think that like Shovel Knight's just comparatively a simpler game. And when you add in more stuff and more complications, more thorns come out of those things. And so, Mina definitely wasn't like the smooth ride of like, I'm just having the best time ever that Shovel Knight was, but I did have a lot of that same feeling once I kind of learned what this is. So for anyone out there who listened to this entire thing and still hasn't played the game, I do think that like, you know, hearing the twist, hearing how the story goes is not going to ruin anything for you. You'll go hours without talking to a single person in this game anyway. So it's just not that type of thing where knowing the story kind of makes it not worth playing, which I don't actually think is true for most things in general. So yeah, I'm just talking now. I got to end this. So Matt, thank you again. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Make sure we do this as often as we reasonably can. So at the end of the show, I will remind everyone, please check down in the show notes for links to Matt's work over on Fun and Games and Reignite podcasts. You can also check on the Fun and Games Patreon for written reviews like Matt did with Mina the Hollower. Those reviews are free. You don't have to pay for them. They're free. But hey, if you like Fun and Games, if you like Reignite, consider subscribing to Matt's Patreon over there. And at the end of the show, I have forgotten how to end the show. I've been talking too long. My brain is 1000% empty. We're below the bottom of the pool now.
Yeah.
Everyone who's still here at the end, you are my hero. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the entire thing, and tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Hey all, this is Doug from Core Gaming, one of, if not the biggest independently owned retro and modern game stores in New England and nationwide at coregamingnh.com. We have over 40,000 items in stock ranging from Atari to Switch 2 and everything in between, as well as manuals, empty boxes, old magazines like Nintendo Power, trading cards, dice, collectibles, 2,000 Funko Pops, and more. We've been around for about 15 years and we're opening our third physical location soon. And because you've made the same smart choice as me listening to Dave on Tales from the Backlog, you can use the coupon code BACKLOG and to get 10% off any purchase of any item anytime at coregamingnh, like New Hampshire.com. Thanks for listening to me talk about my favorite store, and now you can get back to listening to podcasts about my favorite thing, video games.
So Many Games is an independent video game website from a group of passionate people. With a team of over 10 writers doing their bit for game discoverability, you'll surely find a game that will pique your interest. Our reviews delve into the main elements of the game and how they made us feel. With unbased but fair critique and AI-free writing, we hope to offer you a safe place to find out if a game is worthy of your time. But we also write articles from Steam Next Fest catch-ups to topics of interest from the gaming world. And we also publish written interviews from developers to voice actors on our bid to shine some light on the people behind our favourite games. But that's not all, as we also offer a monthly podcast interviewing developers, artists, composers, voice actors, and anyone else we can think of to come and talk about their experiences of making their latest or not so latest projects in real time. With a fortnightly newsletter to go on top of our offerings, there really is something for everybody. So what are you waiting for? Get on over to somanygames.co.uk and see for yourself all the amazing content that we have waiting for you.